He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about to explode bratwurst.
Hey, you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munsons at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host. Join me, the rest of the Munsons want to give them a wide berth.
What is called a born loser? A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in other worlds. This time we'll start with James and his Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah, man. So by the time this comes out, I'll either be drowning my sorrows, but I'm more likely going to be drowning my tears of joy. Either way, I'm going to be drunk is what I'm trying to say, because my Purdue Boilermakers have made the Final Four and they're playing this weekend. I am genuinely shocked at the amount of people who hate the Purdue Boilermakers. I thought we were something people didn't give a shit about, but I don't care. I'll embrace the villain. Yeah, he's fucking tall. Get over it. It's a sport where it's really beneficial to be tall, and he's taller than everybody. Deal with that. I hope we crush NC State. Sorry to our guest. And I hope we crush UConn and their dreams of back-to-back doesn't happen.
Were they mad that he took the net down without the ladder or what? I didn't know they were hated.
No. It's everyone's like, oh, it's boring to watch. All he does is get fouled. It's like, you wouldn't foul someone who is 7'4" and 300 pounds? I'd stab him if he was in the paint. Like, how are you going to stop someone that big?
Congratulations on winning a game this year. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Aubrey.
I've got nothing. I am basking in the joys of working at Santa Fe Catholic High School.
How are our students?
Easter break is a thing.
That didn't sound sarcastic at all.
No, it's actually not.
Oh.
Easter break is a thing. I was off school Friday. I was off school today.
Oh, nice.
And I'm off school tomorrow.
Oh, well, you said Catholic school, so, he has risen. You got to celebrate it.
I mean, I guess that's what we're doing. I celebrated by watching some of the greatest movies ever put to film. Basketball season's over. Stabbing, not as effective of a fouling technique as you might think, James. Excited isn't the word I would say for this podcast. I would say I'm ready.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Attaboy.
This is one of those episodes I'm going to be incredibly interested in everyone's Will Ferrell's favorite movie and role. I love that one. And a little teaser on my end. I have unironically listened to the song Love Me Sexy. And I also know the history and origin of the alley-oop. So you know where I'm going.
That is one of my favorite scenes of that movie.
In my world, I will only respond tonight to Nighthawk. Anything other than that, and you will not get my attention. I just want you to know that first and foremost. Secondly, last Friday, I participated in something called the Bigger Picture Show here locally, where the Indie Film Fest asked a bunch of local graphic designers to design creative movie posters, their own original takes. And I walked away with two pieces of art. I walked away with a poster from The Way, Way Back, one of my favorite films of the past 20 years, with Sam Rockwell, one we've covered many times in the pod, with Rockwell, Rudolph, Allison Janney, a bunch of really good actors. And that was like my number 2 overall. I also brought home a Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I am very excited for that, and to hear Aubrey tell us how much he loves Will Ferrell for the next couple of hours.
It's coming.
But what I'm most excited for is the return of Jay Ledbetter. It's been a minute. This is news to me, but apparently he was voted Best Munsons at the Movie Guest at the 2022 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. I wish somebody would have told us.
Congratulations, Jay.
Thank you. I told you guys not to put that in the bio, but you insisted, so I appreciate it.
For those who don't know, Jay is the co-host of the Director Watch podcast on the AwardsWatch podcast feed, which is a new deal. He previously joined us for the Holly Hunter and Dan Hedaya episodes and just narrowly missed out on an appearance for the Michael Caine entry. Welcome back, Jay, and tell us about this new podcast adventure you're on.
Yeah, new pod. Who this? Very excited to be back. Yeah, so I used to be over at old In Session Film, complete clean break. We were like, sorry, but doing something else now. Somebody reached out who was like, hey, I'm moving over here. Do you want to come with me? I said, okay, here we go. So now I'm at AwardsWatch, despite the fact that I am utterly indifferent to movie awards. I now have a podcast at AwardsWatch called Director Watch, where we cover over a period of weeks. We cover a director's filmography. So it's a lot of fun over there. And what a great excuse to watch a bunch of Will Ferrell movies this was. This was a good time. I'm excited. Thank you guys for having me back.
Who did you guys most recently cover, and were there any Will Ferrell movies in the midst? I'm going to go with no.
I don't think we've done any Ferrells. The last director we did was R.I.P., recently deceased William Friedkin. We covered a handful of Friedkin flicks. Ferrell, unfortunately, not in The French Connection. He would have been great.
Would have been.
Wasn't Popeye Doyle. No Ferrell's covered yet, I don't think. Looking at his, running through his filmography, you're kind of like, in a podcast that's kind of about auteur filmmakers, how often did Will Ferrell really give himself over to an auteur filmmaker? Not much.
Always informative, funny as hell. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some Will Ferrell. All right, before we get into Will Ferrell, though, we always start with some birthdays. We're looking at April 11th. Not a great day for birthdays. Just going to be very forthright with you. Really no dead people I could even isolate here. There just wasn't much to play with for birthdays. So I pulled two. I'm only going to stick to two because we got a lot of Will Ferrell content to cover. So first and foremost, I have Jennifer Esposito. Who is Jennifer Esposito? Great question. She was in He Got Game, Summer of Sam, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, Crash, NCIS, and Blue Bloods. How old is Jennifer Esposito?
Wasn't she married to Bradley Cooper?
What?
Yep, married in 2006 and divorced 4 months later.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So a loving relationship.
Yeah.
2006, you say?
2006, they were married, yep.
He's trying to use that.
Lovely woman. Very lovely.
Jennifer Esposito is one of them ones. I will not elaborate, but if Jennifer Esposito is one of them ones.
I will elaborate. She's hot.
Very.
Always been hot. Still is hot.
I think she's smart and has a great personality.
There you go, Jay. Someone's got to bring us back to respect. How old is Jennifer, though?
I mean, there's only two people. She's the only woman, so 25.
I have no idea.
I think she's far too accomplished for 25. So I'm going to say 29.
Well played.
You guys are just being incredibly polite. I'm going to go with 43.
All right, Jay.
I want to take the over on this one and say if she was married in 06, Hollywood, they get married a little later. Let's say 48.
Jay's going to win this one because Jennifer's turning 51. Peter Reichert. He was in The Mask.
This is slim pickings for the birthday. Good grief.
I'm telling you, it's not great. The Mask, Animal House, Oscar, Traffic, and Dads. How old is Peter Reichert?
55.
He's the lead detective in The Mask who keeps giving Ipkiss trouble, if you remember.
Okay, actually, that does help. Yeah. Okay, so he's definitely older than. Yeah. That's okay. Hold on.
70.
Yeah, I think that's probably closer.
One thing I know him from is Local Hero.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go 76.
Okay.
My deductive skills and my not really caring are really conflicting here. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, I don't know, 71.
Jay's sweeping because Peter Reichert's turning 77 on April 11th.
Wow, that was
damn.
a good blind guess. Wow.
Pretty good. One off each time. Happy birthday to those two individuals and the nobody else, because nobody else has a birthday on April 11th. That's worth noting.
More importantly, at this release, my mom's birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Hey, happy belated birthday, Jay's mom.
5 actors we threw onto the wheel for episode 99.
Wow.
The 5 actors were Alan Tudyk, Kristen Wiig, Linda Hamilton, and Thomas Lennon, but it does not matter because the wheel selected Will Ferrell. Will's done a couple things. He's got 133 acting credits. He's produced 80 different projects. He's written 22. He's sung. He's done some dancing. He's had some accents. This man's done quite a bit in the world of entertainment. So we're going to talk about as much as we can. We're not going to talk about all 133, all 80 producing credits, but we'll hit a lot of the highlights along the way. But before we do that, we always start with a little actor trivia to see if James can stump us Fast and Furious style.
Yeah, so Jay, you've done this with us before, but for those of you at home who are listening who are not aware, I'm going to read off 3 facts. 2 of them are going to be true about Will Ferrell. One of them is not going to be true about Will Ferrell, but will be about one of the many illustrious cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise, an American staple of cinema. The gentlemen here are going to have to guess which one that is. Fact number 1. His father was a band member for the group The Righteous Brothers, and is featured on number 1 hit songs You Lost That Love and Feeling, You're My Soul and Inspiration, as well as the now platinum record Unchained Melody. Fact number 2. He was a kicker for his high school football team and still holds the school record for the most field goals made with 14 field goals his senior season. Fact number 3. Performed his first stand-up set at 16 at a bowling alley after a group of friends who knew about his comedy aspirations dared him to do so. 4 years later, he auditioned for SNL, becoming one of the show's youngest cast members ever.
James, I think fact 2 is the lie. That's because I think that's about one of the other guys in The Other Guys, his co-star, The Rock.
He survived the movie, too, if I remember correctly. Remember correctly.
I'm going to say number 3 is a lie. I don't remember him doing comedy that early. I think he was just like a frat guy. And then I don't remember him being one of the youngest SNL cast members ever.
That feels accurate. It's probably right, but I want the first fact to be false because I think Devin Aoki's dad was in Righteous Brothers. Doesn't everybody know that?
I'm sure he wasn't.
I thought that was pretty common knowledge.
I'm going one also, but it's obviously Cardi B.
Ooh, all right.
Cardi B's dad was in the Righteous Brothers.
I am fascinated to who this Righteous Brother fact is. I knew that one wasn't The Rock's dad, so I couldn't stretch it that far.
Who's kicking field goals?
The Rock?
Not in Florida.
All right, well, fact number 1, his father was a band member for the group The Righteous Brothers, featured on a platinum record, including number 1 hit songs You Lost That Love and Feeling and You're My Soul and Inspiration, is true. Will's dad, Roy Lee Ferrell, was the band leader, keyboardist, and saxophonist for the Righteous Brothers and toured with them for 20 years. Despite his father's artistic success, Will said it actually deterred him from getting into show business because of the lack of steady paycheck and how often his dad was away from the family, which ultimately led his parents to getting a divorce. His dad actually didn't make that much money from this to begin with. In the 60s, most groups were kind of taken advantage of, and he was a studio musician. So like when they were on the West Coast, they used him, but when they would go national tours, he wasn't really that involved. So this actually deterred Will from getting into show business. But eventually his dad did get some money from this, and recovered it. And in 2006 and 2008, he actually performed music for 2 of Will's films, Talladega Nights and Step Brothers.
That's cool.
Very cool. Fact number 2, still holds the record for most field goals made a senior season at his high school. That is true. He was a 3-sport athlete in high school. He was actually fully grown by the end of his freshman year, which means he was 6'3" going into 10th grade. It led to him being the captain of the basketball team. He was a starter on the soccer team. And during the fall season, he was a kicker for the football team, where he knocked through 41 out of 50 extra points and set the record with 14 field goal attempts. He attempted to walk on to USC's football team to continue his athletic career, but didn't make the cut. Instead, delved into sports broadcasting and eventually acting. And fact number 3, which is, Jay, you were correct. He performed his first stand-up bowling alley at the age of 16, is not true. After college, Ferrell actually had a few failed jobs. He was a valet. He was a bank teller. He attempted stand-up, but he actually failed at that as well. He joined an improv group in L.A. where he met Chris Kattan and Sherry O'Terry. And those absolutely electric improv comedians caught the eye of an SNL producer, asked all 3 to audition for the show. They made it. Rest was history. Ferrell would go on to be the highest paid member in SNL history, making $350K during the final season. However, he was 28 when he joined, not 20, which is actually a fact about Pete Davidson, who started doing stand-up at the age of 16 and most famously plays Bowie 420, a black market drug dealer operating out of an internet cafe in Fast X.
It makes sense watching some of his roles. He's actually pretty graceful and athletic in physical roles.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hearing that athletic background makes a ton of sense.
When you streak quite a bit at USC back in the day, it leads you to success when you start streaking in old school.
Through the quads to the gymnasium?
A lot of sports or sports adjacent movies.
I appreciate you, James.
Absolutely.
All right, Case, tell us a little bit about his snapshot and box office.
One of these things that stands out in his box office snapshot is for a comedic actor, he has very few movies that have lost money. Usually, the more comedic-based actors we've looked at will have almost a 50-50, where some make money, some lose money. Of the 60 films that I have data on that's complete, only 12 of them lost money. And that's actually pretty impressive for a comedic actor. The ones that did make money, the one that makes probably the most significant dent comparing to other people is his participation in the movie Barbie. Barbie had the 11th highest opening weekend of any film we've looked at and has the 6th highest world gross. But that's probably closer to third or fourth because we've had multiple actors from whatever Marvel movie made all that money. And those guys are soaking up 1, 2, and 3. But overall, it's just a very strange comedy profile. He's got the 23rd largest budgeted film we've looked at. His average budget on movies is $49.1 million. It was such a wild exercise going through and punching in his numbers. The one area that I thought was really surprising, and I don't know why, so I'd be interested in your guys' feedback on this, but he does not do particularly well in international box office. Most of the money, box office-wise, that's made from his films is all domestic. Aubrey may be onto something. There may not be a taste for Will Ferrell outside of the United States. And so I'll be interested in some input on that. But in the numbers that we compare against everybody else, he has the 19th highest total box office, 32nd for Star Meter. He gets beat up on this one, guys. 71 and 70 in the critic and fan ranking with a 51.3% from the critics. Not a surprise, but only 57.4 from fans, which I thought was a little bit low. And then he has a 58th and 33rd in box office metrics. When you put all that together and compare him against everybody else, he comes in at 52.
Right down the middle.
What was his Star Meter ranking?
Star Meter was 32.
This is all a little bit lower than I thought it would be. I thought all of this would be higher.
He's ranked 612 in the Star Meter, 32nd in ours.
You look at his Star Meter 15 years ago, he's like elite of the elite.
He's got the highest consistent Star Meter of anybody we've looked at.
The critic ranking thing, that didn't surprise me. That's the only thing that didn't surprise me. I thought the rest of this would be a lot higher.
All right, thanks, guys.
You bet.
All right, so first major role we're going to talk about is in 1998, so all the early days. James talked about quite a bit of this, which is great, so I'll kind of fill in the gaps, and then if I miss anything else that you guys want to pepper in, feel free. But he was born in Irvine, California in 1967, so his first major role wasn't until he turned 31 years old, so a little bit later in the game to starting at least acting on the premiere side of things. But like James said, in high school, earlier than that, his parents got divorced. He was an athlete, and his earliest days of comedy was performing skits over the high school PA system with his classmates. It became pretty clear from the research I did that he was the class clown. That's what he got his early comedic chops, just testing it out with his friends, which doesn't shock you in the slightest. After high school, he went to USC, studied broadcasting, did the fraternity thing, like Jay mentioned, joined Delta Tau Delta, which, hey, we got some Greek folks on here, and so we always like pointing those things out. I think the last one we had was Lucy Liu, proud Chi Omega. But also, he didn't want to go into showbiz, so coming out, he had a couple of those odd jobs James mentioned, also worked at an auction house, was a mall Santa for a little bit, did a little bit of everything in his early days, post-grad, post-college.
You know who he was a mall Santa with?
No, who?
Chris Kattan.
Oh, that makes sense.
He was a mall Santa and Kattan was his elf.
Oh, I love that.
That rocks.
Yeah.
He eventually moved to LA per his some of his guidance from his mom, and that's where he joined the Groundlings, and so that's where he met Chris Kattan, Sherry O'Terry. In fact, one of his first big characters he ever wrote and performed was the Butabi Brothers with Chris Kattan, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Jay can't get away from that movie. He was here for Dan Hedaya. He just can't shake the damn thing.
Nope.
That and Dick, which is a much better movie, but we'll talk about both here in a second.
It's interesting that came from a Groundlings and not Saturday Night Live. I always thought the Night at the Roxbury was a Saturday Night Live thing.
No, started with the Groundlings. But then in 1995, he met his future wife, Swedish actress Vivica Pauline, and they were in an acting class together, and they're still happily married, have 3 sons together. They had an 04, 06, and 2010, to the point where his son is old enough now to where Will Ferrell was recently spotted being a DJ at a fraternity party at USC.
Yeah.
Living his best life. So his oldest is college age these days.
He's in his Bill Murray era, kind of popping up and
That's right.
Yeah.
Just wherever.
becoming a personality. Yep.
But much less of an asshole, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Not hard to do.
That's true. Low bar. Low bar. Early on, before he gets into the SNL space, he did essentially like 4 TV episodes, like one pop TV episodes. On Our Own was the first one. He played a construction worker, and then he was on 3 other 1-episode appearances. But he got his big break on SNL in 1995 and was on 140 different episodes over a span of 95 to 2018, and has played some of SNL's most iconic characters over that time.
Yeah.
Gene, Don't Fear the Reaper, Blue Oyster Cult, Fame, Harry Carey, Janet Reno, George Bush, and my personal favorite, Alex Trebek, with all the Celebrity Jeopardies.
Trebek's incredible. Because Lorne Michaels is an odd duck. Obviously, the producers came to him and were like, hey, this is some of the lowest ratings we've had. I think it was like after the 94 season. He's like, so we actually found some people we want to audition, and it was, who would go on to be like the next 7-year stars, which is Catan, Sherry O'Terry, and Will Ferrell. And so they knew some of the bits that he could do, and they knew he could do a ton of impersonations. And he showed up, and he was about to do these bits and impersonations, and Lorne Michaels just like interrupted him, and he's like, I don't want to see that. I want to see something different. And he just like put him on the spot. He's like,
Do the Dr. Evil voice.
and so what ended up happening is he pretended to be a kitten, and he started playing with the stuff on set, and there was no speaking, and it was just him as a cat. He said he went in there with a briefcase of money, fake money, and he was just going to like jokingly bribe Lorne Michaels. But after Michael said that, he's like, it threw me off. And so I was just like, I got a spitball on the fly. Maybe he was testing him, who knows? But it's pretty bad. There's video of it. And it's one of those things where you can tell he's incredibly uncomfortable. But it's him pretending to be a cat playing with the stuff on stage.
That's what you got to do to get the job.
Kyle, you left off his portrayal of the famous crooner Robert Goulet.
I mean, I left off a lot, to be completely honest. There was so much more. I just hit like 5 or 6 highlights. The dude is about as prolific as it gets. There's nobody else, I think, in SNL history that could make cast members break like Will Ferrell did. Like, no one was safe around him.
It's hilarious.
For anybody under, like, I don't know, 55, he's got to be the consensus best SNL cast member of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
As somebody who grew up watching that show, I can't think of anybody that's in nearly as many skits as that.
Mm-hmm.
That was just so impressive when you think about how that show was run. I'd agree. I think he's the most prolific of all time.
The skit that I'd never seen before that I watched for this that I fell in love with was the old Prospector.
Oh, yeah, man. I love that skit.
Nobody can keep it together during that one. Where he's like, "Oh, make the sound of a chipmunk." And everyone's breaking in there. Chris Kattan's the only one remotely keeping it together.
We definitely had the old best of Will Ferrell VHS SNL tape.
Mm-hmm.
A masterpiece.
We've covered a lot of SNL actors in 99 episodes, but no one nearly as prolific as Will Ferrell. Not even close.
And didn't he even host it? Did he host it 5 times?
5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a 5-time.
That's crazy.
I respect his work on SNL. I listened to him on the Smartless podcast talk about Harry Carey. I'm here for his work. I will never deny what he did on SNL. Everyone says it's amazing. I don't really watch SNL like that. So the voice for the voiceless.
Silent judgment.
The small group of people that don't like Will Ferrell. 1%ers.
Christopher Walken told Will Ferrell that he had ruined his life because people only talk to him about The Deer Hunter, Pulp Fiction, and Cowbells.
He's an SNL legend. So what a way to start as we get into his career and start talking about things like of substance. his first like movie role, and it's just not hearty enough to be considered first major role, but was in Austin Powers International Man of Mystery as Mustafa in 97 alongside Seth Green, a role where he just won't die. You get his early bit early on.
It's a great bit. It's so simple, but it sets the stage for what the movie's going to be like. And he just keeps interrupting them because he's not dead. And they just keep pretending, like hitting a button that'll kill him. And he just doesn't die the whole time. It's so stupid and simple, and it's great.
And he's back in the second one, too. So clearly there was no amount of buttons that can knock him off because he was back in the Spidey Shagman.
And you know what they did in the second one was they made him a little less tan than they did in the first one, which was probably the right call.
They did a lot of brown face in that first one.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And then he did an episode of Cow and Chicken in 97. What a callback. The little Cartoon Network action.
You don't want to spend any more time on that?
On Cow and Chicken? Mama had a chicken. Mama had a cow. Dad was proud. He didn't care how. Bing, bing. I used to watch a lot of Cow and Chicken. But I don't remember his role. I'm going to be honest, guys. Sorry about it. Sorry I didn't come with that kind of research. But A Night of the Roxbury is what we're calling his first major role. We have talked about this before on the Dan Hedaya episode, the last time Jay was here. But he plays Steve Butabi / he was also a writer on the project. And James is going to talk about it a little bit.
Case originally covered this movie when we did the Dan Hedaya episode, which Jay was here for because Jay loves Night at the Roxbury.
Just love Night at the Roxbury.
But since this is Will Ferrell's first major role, and it's a movie he co-wrote about characters he created personally, we figured we'd cover it again. It has an 11% critic score, which is actually up 2% from the last time we covered it 2 years ago. So it's improving.
Ooh. People are finally coming around.
Yeah, I think our podcast actually helped change people's minds. 69% audience score. Kyle mentioned that Will Ferrell actually met his wife Vivica during his time in LA in 1994, and they started dating in 95. But they actually broke up when Will moved to New York for SNL, but they remained close friends. After the success of the Butabi Brothers skits on SNL, a full-length movie was written by Ferrell and Catan. It was produced by SNL creator Lorne Michaels. When they found out the movie was going to be filmed in LA as opposed to New York, where the characters clearly kind of came into their own on SNL, they were clearly New Yorkers. It was going to be filmed in LA. Ferrell had actually been maintaining his relationship with Vivica, but they weren't dating, they were friends. And he actually wrote a role for her specifically in the movie. But because he didn't really have the sway to cast who he wanted, they were like, yeah, that's great. We're going to cast Gigi Rice in that role. And it's the role of the woman who hooks up with him because she thinks he's a rich club owner before finding out that the next day he's a huge loser. The character's name is actually Vivica in the movie. And so he tried to get his girl in there. Ultimately didn't have, kind of the pull yet to make that happen, but they rekindled their relationship during the filming. We're married 2 years later and together with 3 kids today. It's got a bunch of great one-liners. It's about a skit on SNL, so the characters are pretty one note. And that one note is that we're on coke, we're stupid, and we're trying to aggressively dance on women. Yeah, there are parts that don't age well, but that was also kind of the joke back then. So it feels a little unfair to judge it that way today. Like, that's who they were mocking back then. So, like, of course, it doesn't look like it ages well, but that was the joke. Ultimately, I'd go a little less than the audience score and say it's like low 50s. Funny, not great, but definitely not as bad as people want to pretend it is in 2024. It's been about a quarter century since it's came out, and watching it again, I was struck by how young Will Ferrell kind of looks in it. Like, he's a baby at this point in his career, a physical comedian who really hadn't quite figured out who he was going to be, but you can tell that the star quality is there, but you can also tell that he's making a movie that his boss told him to make at that time. But one thing that I thought was crazy, and we touched on it last time, is Catan claimed in his memoir that he was pressured by Lorne Michaels to have sex with Amy Heckerling to produce the movie.
Yeah.
And it actually ruined his relationship with Will Ferrell, which explains why the duo, when they were promoting it, it wasn't him and Will Ferrell. It was Catan and Heckerling. Catan and Will Ferrell haven't worked together since they left SNL. This was like the breakup of them, and they were great friends to this point.
Wow.
When I watched it, so like there's a nostalgia factor to it, but like if I watch it for the first time in 2024, I would absolutely hate it. Like every bit of me would be like, this is awful.
Of course.
I think it's one of the better SNL skit adaptations.
I agree.
It's such a double-edged sword because if you go in and you veer too far from the characters, the people that came to watch it because they love those skits, they're mad. And then if you sit in those characters too long, then everybody's bored. So they're mad. They're like, well, this is just a long skit. So it's a hard premise to pull off.
I love it. All right. Well, that's what we're going to kick it off with. In 98 there. 99, he just can't stay away from Dan Hedaya because he's Bob Woodward and Dick, a reimagined version of what happened with the Watergate scandal. And I really enjoy this movie. I rewatched it again for this episode. And Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams play Deep Throat, essentially.
I think this movie is so cleverly written. It is such an interesting kind of farcical take on history, where it's the reason why we can't tell you who broke the Watergate scandal is because it's two 16-year-old teeny boppers who don't know what the fuck they're doing, and it's embarrassing for everyone involved. And I think it's such a clever way.
That's the Will Ferrell line at the end of the movie. He's like, we can't reveal your identity. And she's like, to protect it. He's like, no, it's just really embarrassing. We can't do that.
16-year-old who's obsessed with the president. It's so like we're going to look stupid. We're the FBI.
This was the only one that I had like circled, and I just couldn't make time for it.
This is Will Ferrell's only real person he's played. Bob Woodward.
Mm.
Every other character he's played is fictitious.
Is that true?
Unless you count Frank from Old School.
No.
Well, he hasn't won an Oscar, hasn't gone down the biopic route.
That's right. This is the closest he's gotten.
Jackie Moon wasn't a biopic?
Unfortunately, no.
Only in our hearts.
I wish it were.
That's actually a super fun fact. That's a good one. Only real guy he's played. The dog he played in Strays wasn't based on a real dog?
Fictitious.
Interesting.
Confirmed. He played Jesus in Superstar. Jesus allegedly has risen, so maybe that was real.
Allegedly.
This podcast has gotten surprisingly political.
Sky Corrigan and Jesus in Superstar, another SNL adaptation.
A bad one.
It's not good. I watched it for the first time last night. It was pretty bad.
Bad one.
I wish I hadn't watched it.
Weirdly a formative film for my wife. She watched that so much when she was young. I don't know why. I've watched it one time with her, and that will be the first and the last.
Probably for the same reason we watched A Night of the Roxbury and not proud of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's got this long flowing blonde hair in the film, and then
Hot jock.
he's the hot jock that she wants to make out with, and then he's also Jesus from time to time, which remind me a lot of his character from The Goods. But anyways, he likes to play like apparitions, I've noticed in his career too. Loves that. Big fan of that.
I put this with A Night in the Roxbury of the categories of movies that I have not seen and I will never see.
Nope. I would encourage you not to.
That's fair.
An episode of King of the Hill in 99. And then he goes to a film I had never heard of, which is his lowest critic score.
Oh, yes.
It's called The Suburbans. He plays a character named Gil and has 0% on Rotten Tomatoes in case laid on a grenade for us, apparently.
Let's go. I've been waiting for this all day.
You know, this podcast is never short of irony. The fact I've probably know 99% of his films, and the 1% I don't know is this garbage. Sure, it lands on me, and I'm all right for it. The one thing that I couldn't figure out, this movie was released in 1999. He looks younger in this movie than he does in Night in Roxbury's. Jennifer Love Hewitt is in this movie, and if this movie was filmed in 98 or 97, then she was only like 18 years old. Suburbans is a 1999, I'll call it a movie, because I'm not really sure what to classify it as, since it really wasn't all that funny.
It's a movie.
It wasn't all that romantic. And really, the only music in the movie is the same song played over and over again. The movie's written by its stars, Donal Lardner Ward and Tony Guma. The movie essentially is about a one-hit wonder band from the 1980s who reunite at Will Ferrell's wedding. This movie premiered at Sundance, January 25th, on my birthday. That's very exciting, so it was meant to be. The movie should have changed its name to How Did We Get These People in This Movie? Because here are some of the people that are in this movie. Ben and Jerry Stiller, Dick Clark, Amy Brenneman, Bridget Wilson Sampras, a.k.a. Veronica Vaughn, Robert Loggia. That's nice because now we have back-to-back episodes where we talk about the legend Robert Loggia, J.J. Abrams, and Willie Garson, who you would probably recognize if you saw him, but I just liked him because he plays a terrible human being in this movie named Craig. The movie felt more like kind of a launching pad for some other characters that would later show up. For example, Will Ferrell is really kind of like a dorky, mild-mannered husband, which feels a lot like the prequel for Frank Picard, aka Frank the Tank. Another old school connection. The premise of this movie is that the band gets together at Will Ferrell's wedding, and in this movie, he is marrying the same actress that plays Marissa in Old School. Ben Stiller is really, this is the first role I can remember him as, like kind of a pretentious and just off-putting antagonist. Felt like a lot like White Goodman. As for Will Ferrell, he's fine. In fact, the only line of the whole movie I laughed at was during an interview with MTV where he yelled at Kurt Loder and said, "Shut up, Kurt Loder." If you want to think fondly of this movie, just watch this movie and just keep telling yourself that this is the prequel to Frank the Tank's character in Old School.
I don't want to get behind that universe, but I guess we'll live that.
High praise.
And that's as high as I could get.
According to Rotten Tomatoes, this made $5,800 at the box office.
With inflation,
It's Dallas.
it's like 2.5 billion with inflation.
It's good enough to get a 2010 Mitsubishi Lancer Sportsback with 140,000 miles on it. Not bad.
That's a lot of miles. Oh, you're asking for trouble.
We becoming fans of this Lancer, though. I'm starting to think about that more often.
Case, the real question is 0%. Where you at?
Yeah, 0. I mean,
Oh, that means it's one of the worst ever.
I laughed one time during the whole movie.
Do you think Farrell's people try to bury the fact that he's in this?
I think a lot of them did. I mean, honestly,
Made 6,000. I don't think they had to try very hard.
It's not on his IMDb. It's on Rotten Tomatoes, but not IMDb.
That was a 6-inch grave.
1 inch for every 1,000 I made. I'll keep us moving because we got lots of good stuff coming.
yeah.
The Millennium hits. He's in Drowning Mona alongside Nev Campbell and JLC, the first Munson we've covered who wasn't featured on a Halloween episode. In that one, there's a lot of big time talent in that film. JLC, Jamie Lee Curtis has a mullet in that movie. And then does a couple episodes of Family Guy in 2000, which makes sense. Right in the middle of an SL run, doing King of the Hill, doing some of these other shows. And then another SNL adaptation in 2000's The Ladies' Man.
Ooh, it's a lady.
Ooh, it's the latest. So you don't want a fifth sandwich? So this is largest audience gap. I will admit that one of my best friends from home, he and I, we quote this movie very often. And I know that's an indictment on my personality, but I find this movie hilarious. Like, I quote this movie forever. And so I'm going to really gear down and gear back from quoting this movie to like focus on the important stuff. The Ladies' Man, spawned from SNL. It's got an 11-42 split on Rotten Tomatoes, so 11 for the critics and 42 for the audience. So even the audience score is not terribly high here. Apparently not everybody's favorite SNL adaptation. I think I might be in the opposite end of this. Will Ferrell plays a character named Lance DeLune. He's the leader of the VSA, the Victims of the Smiling Ass, a group of men who come together to bond over Leon Phelps sleeping with all of their wives. And as you learn at the end of the movie, it's because their wives are missing something that their husbands. And how, your wife, she loves you, man. You just never paid attention. But Will Ferrell's character is really fun. I like the shtick that he does. He's a master motivator who always throws a nugget at the end that takes it way over the edge. It's like a microcosm of Will Ferrell's comedy in one role. Because at the end of his like motivational speech, he'll be like, and then we'll cut his balls off. And everybody's like, whoa, let's relax here. What are we doing, Will? You get to see some of his singing chops because there's some musical numbers. The time has come to kill the ladies' man. And it turns out his wife is cheating on him with Leon because he's a Greco-Roman wrestler who, in Leon's words, is clearly gay.
Mm-hmm.
Fun one-liners. And Will Ferrell just really wants him to put on the oil because it's got a really nice lemon scent and it's just delightful. And that's The Ladies' Man. I'm probably in like the 50 range just because I have affinity for this film, but it's not a good movie, but it makes me laugh.
I remember this movie fondly. I was of a particular age when this movie was kicking on cable.
Yeah.
This was in the rotation for 12-year-old Jay.
I love this movie so much. I'm not going to say anything crazy. It's probably like a top 5 Will Ferrell movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie so much. It's so dumb, but it's just whatever. Like I'm just a fan of Tim Meadows. So like,
Mm-hmm.
Love Tim Meadows.
Everything you say that you're quoting, it makes me laugh because everything he does to me is funny.
Have you ever been down the Yellow River? Yeah, once in the 80s, but I did not enjoy it.
According to Rotten Tomatoes, this is the 10th best Saturday Night Live film adaptation.
Out of how many?
Well, they list 12.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure.
It's top 10.
It's better than Superstar. I do think it's better than Night at the Roxbury.
I agree.
It's better than Coneheads.
Superstar's 8, and Night at the Roxbury is 11.
Best one is MacGruber, though. I mean, it's undisputed king.
I love MacGruber.
A cinematic masterpiece. If nothing else, Ladies Man was kind of the one shot Tim Meadows had at being a comedy lead movie star, which he, in my opinion, easily could have been. So it's got that going for it.
I almost wonder if this movie was marketed to the wrong people, though. I've seen similar type movies marketed to different audiences that have worked, and this probably could have been one of those. Maybe not like on a wide scale, like classic, makes a bunch of money. Undercover Brother is like a hood classic. Like, black people love that movie. Like, everyone I knew growing up loved that movie. This should have been in a similar caliber. It just, because of where Tim Meadows was at, probably at the time, it couldn't really do both. So it ends up getting stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
They were playing the trailer in front of the English Patient. What were they thinking?
My final review is Will Ferrell's character is a lot of fun in this film, and I really like The Ladies' Man, and I'm unabashedly on the audience side here. And you're welcome. And I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm walking away a better man today because of that.
Better Ladies Man.
That's right.
Ooh, it's a lady.
Ooh, it's a lady. All right. 19 years before our next review, and this is where the good stuff happens, right? This is what people that came to listen to an episode about Will Ferrell are going to come to listen to 2001 to 2019 because there's so much here. We try to focus in on the Will Ferrell characters. I know it's going to be hard, but do our best. But first and foremost, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. He plays Will and Holly alongside Chris Rock, who is the angry director who's yelling at the white guy to do everything that he wants him to do. And Will Ferrell plays a federal wildlife marshal in the comedic role.
The only thing I'll say about this movie, I love this movie, and this is probably one of the few movies that he goes outside of his comedic circle. With Jay and Silent Bob, he's in a completely different comedy realm than he normally is.
Zoolander, 2001, alongside Owen Wilson, first of several with Owen. He plays Mugatu, and I know James is our resident Zoolander fan, so.
I absolutely love Zoolander. It was originally growing up on my Mount Rushmore of comedy movies. It's no longer in that top 4, but I still find it incredible. Mugatu is a hilarious character, and one that he is obviously, like the rest of the movie, poking fun at the high fashion world and a little ahead of his time, where he's like marketing actual garbage as clothing, and then Kanye does that like a year ago. But the bit that I like the most about Mugatu is that he's the one person who just doesn't understand why everyone thinks Ben Stiller is the hottest thing on earth. And I find that so funny. And he realizes no, he's an idiot and he's not good at this. And why does everyone care? I don't think this is the movie that put Will Ferrell, made him a household name, but I do think it was, he can hold his own with these comedy legends, like at that point, which was Ben Stiller. And I think one of the next roles is one of the ones that made him a household name.
This is one of the Will Ferrell lines I have quoted the most in my job. He's got a lot of coaching lines, right? But I have quoted the line, and I try to capture his essence every time I say it, about, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did my pin get in the way of your ass? Lose 5 pounds immediately. Get out of my face.
Definitely one of the more visually recognizable characters he has. It's very unique.
Yeah.
And dude, he makes kind of like a pseudo reference. I don't know if it's a reference, but his dad was a keyboardist, and Mugatu's claim to fame is that he invented the piano necktie before he got into high fashion. And so it's, I don't know if it's a tip of the cap to his dad, but it is funny that he kind of put that in there.
Well, 2 years later, James kind of alluded to it, but one of his bigger roles that he's pretty well known for, Old School Frank the Tank, 2003. Going back to his fraternity days, I don't think he was doing much acting there.
Dude, I think this is the one that made him a household name. He steals every scene he's in.
Yeah.
Like, he's not the main character, but every scene he's in is one of the funniest scenes in the movie.
This is my favorite Will Ferrell movie. I think this is the best movie he's in. And I think it's Todd Phillips did a great job making this.
Dude, Will Ferrell's great in this. He's clearly like an alcoholic. I love the line where he's the most recently married guy and he's in therapy with his wife.
Oh my God.
And he's like, it's just like starting to hit me that I'm going to be with one vagina. And he like nods at her. He's like, for the rest of my life. It's so fucking funny.
He is kind of the takeaway of the movie.
Yes.
Cultural touchstone of the. We're going streaking. I mean, that's kind of what you think of when you think of old school as Will Ferrell.
Mm-hmm.
Were you talking about his wife from the Suburbans?
Yes, same woman.
Okay.
Actually.
Gotcha.
Hey, Ray.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll throw out a take. The best scene in the movie is the tranquilizer scene with Sean William Scott.
Oh, literally the last thing I watched before we jumped on.
It's so funny. I'm a Sean William Scott
Same.
ride or die as well.
Same.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I hate this movie.
Wow.
I love this.
That's a lava take.
This is nowhere near the top of my Ferrells, but I like it well enough.
This is the launch point.
I will say that I side with the excerpt I've read on Metacritic from Roger Ebert, where he says that this movie has been slapped together by director Todd Phillips, careens from scene to scene without it occurring to him that humor benefits from characterization, context, and continuity. Otherwise, all you have is a lot of people acting goofy.
Oh.
I shoot at some bail because this is the first time I watched it 19 years after it released.
Oh.
Maybe I just missed the boat on this one. But the best way I'll say it is, this will not be the last time I say this. It's not for me.
I'm just honestly shocked. We've never covered this in 99 episodes. That also shocks me.
This one I am sort of like, it's more fun to think about and talk about and watch scenes from than watch the whole thing at once.
I agree with that.
I don't think that's the case with some of the others that I love so much, but this one, that's kind of where I land on it.
The only thing that really kind of set me back here is Case saying that this was his best movie, or the movie that Case thinks is his best movie. I really am not here to be the villain of this and be the down killer. It'd be like shit on everybody's good time. That's really not what I'm here for.
I understand.
But
No, there is no but. I'm really not here for that. I'm really not here for that. So most of the time I'll just say this movie is not for me because the way he goes about his humor doesn't appeal to me.
All right, what about Elf? Buddy the Elf alongside Zooey Deschanel.
I also hate this movie.
Oh man, you're
no, this is a Christmas
so
classic.
wrong.
This is a Christmas classic. Come on.
Never been
now.
more wrong.
If Old School was the one that made him a comedy star, maybe Elf is the one that made him a commercially viable for everybody movie star.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue this might be the most important movie in his career as far as getting him over the hump into being able to do whatever he wants, basically. In addition to not just being like a full family movie, but also he's the lead. He is the guy in this movie. And if he is not fully locked in, this thing falls flat on its face because there is a level of commitment required from Will Ferrell in this movie that is almost unparalleled.
Yeah.
And he nails it. I mean, to the point where they asked him later if he wanted to do a sequel, he was like, I'm like 45 now. I can't do that anymore.
This movie is easily on my Mount Rushmore of Christmas movies. No question.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this is my favorite role of his. Not my favorite movie, favorite role. I don't think this movie works at all with anyone else besides him
No.
as Buddy the Elf. It's plays perfect on his immature humor, his physical comedy, the fact that he is gigantic, like he's a 6'3" baby, and it works perfectly in this role. I think bouncing off of James Caan, who at no point is warm and fuzzy, is great. I think Elf is one of the better Christmas movies there is.
I will say for you, I don't watch Elf at Christmas time. I'm more of a Santa Claus house, but I do love Will Ferrell in this role because talk about fully committing to an absurd premise, yeah, that shouldn't work, but somehow it does.
He gets after it.
Yeah, Kyle, you've talked about his ability to commit to characters, and I shared that story with Jim Brewer and Tracy Morgan throwing him in the dumpster, trying to get him to break character. Agree 100%. If he can't hold character like he does in this movie, it falls flat.
Yeah, he gets after it. I don't think this movie would work with anybody else. I'm not going to deny its success or how it is legitimately a classic. It just doesn't work for me. I don't personally enjoy this movie. This would also be one of those where if we're going to do the semantic movie game of like, I don't like it versus it's bad, I would not call this movie bad. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
It's made by a real director too. I mean, this is Jon Favreau. This is like a real deal director. So, and I think that shows. Like it's
that's a good point.
Yeah.
When they're doing the sort of stop motion animation North Pole world and stuff, I think it all plays.
Great.
I think this movie is like solidly well made in a way that a lot of the other ones I dislike. Also, I'll say I get a lot of blowback for this Will Ferrell thing. Like, so there's nothing that you guys are going to say here that has not been said directly to my face. I get a lot of blowback for this. There are 2 movies, and I'm guessing there'll be 3 after tonight, where I get the most heat, like just the most heat. And Elf is number 1. And it's number 1 because I have to relive this every year. My kid roast me for not liking this movie.
It's your Groundhog Day every year.
Yep. I get roasted for this. And kids are ruthless.
Well, let's go to Anchorman. Let's see if Aubrey can destroy people's hearts and minds on this one too.
So Anchorman is where the first movie I saw Will Ferrell's at that point, because I didn't see Night at the Roxbury when it came out. The first like mainstream movie I saw of Will Ferrell's, that the first time I watched it, I did not like it. And then I rewatched it and I realized that it's so stupid, and that is the point. And him just going full send on being dumb and being goofy and committing to a character is the point of all of his movies, that I loved it. His character is the joke. He is, it is more of a meta thing where instead of I'm going to tell you a joke that's funny, it's laugh at me, laugh at this big man child doing something stupid. And Anchorman, I think, is absolutely hilarious now.
James, I think you described that really well. And I also think you did me a huge service by describing it that well, because you put into words a much easier way for me how I can describe why I don't like him. Because I think you're right. I think that's what I don't like, is that it is super stupid. Because Ron Burgundy is a character that I like in small doses.
Iconic.
When he would do the spots of Ron Burgundy, and he would be on ESPN, or he would do small spots of it.
You like the SNL skit version of Ron Burgundy?
The movie is where I struggle. I had a harder time with the movie.
This is one of the most important movies of my existence. This movie basically established my sense of humor for, some people might say 4 years. This came out when I was 13, so others might say 20 years. It was a transcendent experience walking out of the theater of Anchorman at age 13 and just being like, oh, things are different now. This is interesting.
A seminal film.
The amount of times that this movie was quoted in middle school and high school with us, and the amount of lines that I could just spout off right now. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Anything like that. This was the start of this era of comedy, the Apatow, the age of Apatow, right? Where it was just, hey, we're going to turn the camera on for about 45 minutes, and you guys just kind of do whatever you want. Sometimes at the expense of story, but we're going to put together a lot of scenes that will be very funny on their own. And I do think Anchorman is one of the movies that has a through line that really ties all of those scenes together in a satisfactory way, where it is this movie, you're right, it's not just stupid for the sake of being stupid. It's kind of about showing how stupid these people are and how stupid this environment is, in an effort to kind of shine a light on this weird sexist, misogynist era of 1970s news industry, and maybe shine a light on like the entertainment industry in general. Lord knows that at this point we know that Adam McKay has other stuff on his mind beyond being goofy and silly. I like it more when he's goofy and silly and less obviously stupidly political. But this movie's huge. This is a big one. This is the Mount Rushmore. If maybe they just only have one face on Mount Rushmore now, and it's Ron Burgundy. as far as Will Ferrell movies are concerned.
We talked about those with Christina Applegate and Steve Carell.
That's right.
We've hit this a few times. I'm going to keep going. Starsky and Hutch plays Big Earl. One scene, he's the prison inmate who really wants them to pretend to be dragons for all of their information.
Dragons.
All right, I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to get weird.
Dang.
2 dragons.
I want to know how the hell he got that jean jacket in prison.
Didn't Todd Phillips direct this one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Cardigan Cola. Do it. Do it.
Congrats to all involved on their paycheck.
Another Owen Wilson movie. We talked about it last time. I think somebody mentioned Snoop Dogg is
Huggy Bear.
Huggy Bear. That's right. All right, so let's Kicking and Screaming. He plays Phil, 2005. A little bit of a different, I don't know, different target audience. I don't know. How would you describe?
Going back to Elf Speed.
Yeah, a little more family-ish.
Mm-hmm.
This is very family movie type. It's almost like a movie out of era. It feels like it was something that should have been made earlier.
Kids sports comedy, Big Green, Little Giants, Rookie of the Year, all that stuff.
I mean, I watched it because I needed to be able to watch something on this list with my son.
I just remember him screaming a lot at kids. That's all I remember.
It was brutal.
It does scream a lot of kids.
Jacked up on caffeine. I mean, you'll take on Mike Ditka when you got that much caffeine.
Mike Ditka is the best part of this movie.
Oh, he's hilarious.
My little brother was 7 or 8 when this came out, and this was like the beautiful middle point of I like Will Ferrell, you're a young kid who likes sports, so I've seen this movie an astounding amount of times. However, it has probably been 15 years since I have seen it, so I can't speak much to it. I do remember it being a palatable piece of entertainment when you are compromising what you want to watch.
It's a good description.
Will Ferrell says it's his favorite movie that he's been in because his son was born during it, and so he's always associated it with like the start of his family.
Oh, that's cool.
And he's like, I look forward to showing it to him because like this is when, kind of like our lives together started.
That's a great nugget, James. I love that.
You think he can point out like the scene where he's like, you were conceived that day?
No, it's while he's born, so it's probably like while he was filming like Anchorman or something. But he's like, yeah, you actually came out on this day, which is why I look like shit.
All that time of calling Christina Applegate a dirty pirate hooker got him all worked up. Going back, so that's good. Another side character, another Owen Wilson film, a ton of them there in the early 2000s. Wedding Crashers plays Chaz, the guy who taught them all everything they need to know about wedding crashing and funeral crashing, apparently.
And nunchucks. Don't forget them.
The fuck do you want?
His cameo is a surprise at the end. But I quote, "Mom, meatloaf, fuck," all the time. And then I say, I never know what she's doing.
What is she doing?
Yeah, when I'm watching my daughter by myself. I never know what she's doing.
I almost nunchucked you. You have no idea.
He's the best part of this movie. This is a movie I'm not like head over heels for, but he absolutely rocks. Between his scenes and my lifelong adoration of Rachel McAdams, I'll go back.
Oh, you're going to have to fight me for her.
His cameo in this was such a change of speed from the rest of the movie that I think that's what makes it so memorable. They weren't trying to be over the top funny. They were trying to be funny and have a comedy movie. I mean, this guy comes in and just puts it in a blender, and all of a sudden it's crazy talk. I mean, he's talking about wasn't he talking about the hang glider or something?
Yeah, no, that's literally the line I quote more than anything else. I'm like, what a loser. Good, I'm alive dead.
Hey, so in the last podcast, I said I don't want to die in a way where people think I'm a fucking idiot. And it's because of this scene where it's like,
oh, that's right.
He died in a hang gliding accident. What an idiot. Honey, take a photo. Oh, I'm dead.
They brought him on set. They said, so here's the scene. You're here and you're a loser and you taught these guys how to wedding crash. And he was like, okay, that's all I need. Give me like an hour. He was on set for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, probably
made $1 million, and he was the most memorable part of the movie.
Well paid.
And to that, I say, good for you, sir.
Tip of the cap.
This is one of my favorite Will Ferrell performances. I like it even more because of what he does in this. This was one for me that I enjoyed.
Do we have common ground with the producers? He plays Franz, a guy who really loves Hitler. Man, does he love Hitler in that role. He's going to clear the Fuhrer's name. I don't know if you know.
Well, that's like the whole joke of the show, The Producers.
I know.
We covered it with Broderick, and
Yeah.
it's too Broadway for a movie that probably shouldn't have been remade.
It's so much worse than the original movie is the biggest problem with it.
Right.
I don't know that it's the best fit for him as a performer. This particular movie, that the idea of this is so inherently absurd that you need to add a certain level of groundedness to the characters within it. I think he's not a great match for something like that, where it's like you keep getting zanier and zanier and zanier and zanier and zanier until at one point it's just exhausting, which I think is what we'll run into as we get further on in his career. But I think that's the case with this.
Agree. Well, let's go to a movie that is eminently quotable, because if you ain't first, you're last, and that's Talladega Nights. Ricky Bobby, he's a screenwriter and executive producer, so I think this was his first big executive producer role. So this is him putting his money where his mouth is. And after 06 is when you start to see him spend a lot of his own money on projects. But Ricky Bobby alongside Gary Cole.
Insanely quotable. It's clear the chemistry he has with John C. Reilly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Their improv, bouncing off of each other and riffing is so fucking funny. Talladega Nights is one of my favorite Will Ferrell movies for sure.
Frankie Pepe Le Pew.
Oh my God, dude, when Sacha Baron Cohen describes the things that France has invented, and then he has like a moment realization, he's like, actually, those are pretty good things. Yeah, I like all those things too. He's like, you talk about crepes, those thin little pancakes? Oh, I love crepes.
Seems like a fair compromise to me.
It's a really, really thin pancake.
Well, you better break it. These colors don't run.
Yeah, this is another one of those. I mean, geez, this thing came out in high school. Are you kidding me? Of course I love this movie. It's one, Amy Adams, great, love her, and it's really weird looking back on her career that she was in this movie. But it was just, I mean, it was like, hey, let's get Borat and Ron Burgundy, and then at that point it was kind of like this other guy that Will Ferrell likes a lot. Let's get him all in this movie and make this eminently quotable sports movie that really is a throwback to like your Major League and Slapshot kind of stuff like that, kind of these really crass, crude, kind of playful, pretty unserious but fun sports comedies. It's a blast.
Don't you stick that knife in your leg. I'm so paralyzed.
I hope you have beautiful athletic sons, and one day their legs are taken from them.
Here, 6 pound, 8 ounce, baby Jesus.
The only thing you ever did was make a hot daughter. That's it.
Jesus was a man. He had a beard.
He had a beard.
Such a good line.
Again, I saw outtakes where like he's the only person he doesn't bust up in those scenes is the old. I don't know the actor's name, the really old guy, but I just don't know if he knew where he was in that moment. But but everybody's losing. I just don't know how he keeps it straight, to be honest.
Of the long list of Will Ferrell movies I take heat for, this is second.
Oh man,
Justifiably so.
This one gets the adults outraged.
Yeah.
I've hated this movie since it came out.
You just don't like NASCAR.
Just for what you guys were describing, I've heard this movie quoted to me so many times.
So proud of you boys.
Shake and bake.
Especially down in Florida. I bet this movie played with half the people you meet down there.
It's literally every conversation of a white guy my age was about this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, there's a certain demographic and they happen to live around you.
Yep. It's so this one, I hated it before I even saw it. But I've seen it twice now. It's not for me.
Doesn't mean you could say what you want to me.
I said with all due respect.
I like to picture Jesus in a tuxedo t-shirt. As it says, I'm formal, but I'm also here to party.
But I like to party. I like my Jesus party. I didn't know you had experimental surgery to have your balls removed. All right, what a different tone, though. His next movie in 2006, Stranger Than Fiction. He played Harold, a role we talked about way back in the Emma Thompson episode many, many moons ago.
Oh, that's right.
I really like this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, but a movie that actually isn't complete nonsense. Like, actually has a story and tells a really good story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a phenomenal movie. I'll stand on that, Rock.
Was this the one where he hears her?
Yep.
Yeah, he's the character in her story.
I like this movie.
Yep.
It felt like maybe him turning a page into a new era, and it never really
It did.
came to fruition.
Yeah.
It felt like his Jim Carrey doing Man on the Moon or Eternal Sunshine or something, and then that never really came to be.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Harold Crick could have been that character that could have led him in a kind of a different direction, or at least like an adapted version of what his career became. And
Who knows if people were like, if this got nominated for an Oscar for whatever reason, because it felt like kind of what they were sort of shooting for. Who knows what his career looks like, but it didn't. And so we got Holmes and Sherlock.
Holmes and Watson.
Holmes and Watson.
Holmes and Watson, sorry.
This was my most anticipated watch this whole time.
Ooh.
I've been wanting to watch this movie for a while, and I've never been able to get to it. And so I made a point to watch this when I watched this today, and I love this movie. I love it a lot.
He got a Golden Globe nom too for his role.
It's a really interesting movie that's playing with a lot of different things.
Yep.
I could probably talk about this movie for hours because of some of the things I think it's playing with are just hitting kind of home personally right now. And it kind of knocked me off my seat a little bit watching this today. But keeping it to him, I was impressed. It's a different thing. It's a thing I like to see from him, which is a little bit more understated. There are funny parts to this movie at times, but he's not the main focus of a ton. I would have liked to see him to be able to go a little bit more. I think we kind of see bounds of what he can do in a movie like this. We see the limits of it, especially when he's like set across some of the people that are in this movie that are really going for it or really killing it. This is a full stop great movie.
It's pretty close to being the best movie I think he might be in, to your point, Case. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it might be one of the better, like, objectively good movies he's in.
Yep.
But back to the normal Will Ferrell we're used to, Blades of Glory. He plays Chaz, the rock star bad boy of figure skating. He just brings all these sports that I guess people maybe didn't expect to have a mainstream comedy around, and he's like, hey, let's figure skating with John Heater, let's go.
Sort of the ESPN 8 to Ocho effect, where it was like, let's get these offbeat sports and give them movies. This is the movie where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this movie is bad, but God, do I love this movie. I love this movie. This is profoundly stupid. It makes me laugh so hard. And this is not one of the ones you think of when people talk about like their favorite Will Ferrell movies, especially Will Ferrell sports movies. But I like this. I don't like it as much as Talladega Nights. I like it more than Semi-Pro. I'll say that.
Same. Oh, I agree.
This for me is like such a stupid good time. Good luck finding a movie where a sample was featured in a huge hit song by Kanye West.
No one knows what it means.
Yes.
But it's provocative. Gets the people going.
It gets the people going.
I mean, just his name, Chad Michael Michaels. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know what you're getting yourself into.
When he sees Nancy Kerrigan, he goes, Nancy Kerrigan, you an official here? Because you officially giving me a boner. It's so fucking funny. It's so stupid, but like it's his commitment to being like this like sex crazed bad boy.
Well, 2007 was a big moment for him because I didn't realize he co-launched Funny or Die with Adam McKay in 2007. I didn't know that from my research.
The landlady.
Yep. Yeah, the landlord.
The landlord. Yeah.
Played by Pearl, which was Adam McKay's daughter. is so good. Such a classic. Give me my fucking money, bitch. Apparently they got a bunch of heat from people saying there was like child abuse because and Adam McKay's like, listen, she's young enough. She just repeats what I say and forgets completely what she's saying.
That shit was hysterical. That was like one of the first viral things I remember where everyone's like, you got to watch this.
Yeah, and then you look back on it and it's like, oh, it was totally manufactured by one of the biggest movie stars on Earth and one of the biggest movie producers on Earth. And it was like, oh, that's why everything that goes viral now is from the Jimmy Fallon show or something like that. That was the dawn of that.
Yeah, it's like a pretty pivotal pop culture moment there, for sure.
Manufactured virality.
Semi-Pro, Jackie Moon, Flint Tropics, another first-time watch for me. I know that's shameful. I grew up 20 minutes from Flint. Here's the thing that surprised me about Semi-Pro. He's not really the focal point of the story. It's Woody Harrelson. Like, I went in thinking it was about Jackie Moon. It's really not about Jackie Moon. Just when his ego could get really toxic, it kind of takes a step back and lets Woody Harrelson take basically the focus of the story the whole second half. Caught me off guard.
Favorite role? Jackie Moon.
Oh yeah, I mean he's great. Just the visuals of him too. I mean I wish I loved this movie. I just don't.
Hey, him and Bill Russell are the most successful player coaches in basketball history. So for what it's worth.
You should show this to your team, Aubrey. That's really what Case is trying to say.
We'll never.
Very important.
We knew Woody could hoop from White Man Can't Jump, but he still had it many
That's
years
true.
later.
Because it comes out of nowhere. But I fucking love the bit of them inventing the alley-oop. I think it is so fucking funny. And watching Matt Walsh as the pastor / referee, it's like, whoa. You can't just be flying around. How are you going to defend? He's like,
Foul.
That is a technical foul. Yeah, he's like, actually, it's 2 fouls.
Double foul.
I like Jackie Earle Haley in it too.
Oh, Jackie Earle Haley's great in that as like the hippie, stoner, homeless fan.
Hippie vagrant. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they score 100 points, they get corn dogs, and he counts the basket, and he points at Jackie Moon. He goes, "Corn dogs, Jackie, corn dogs."
That was the funniest bit to me in the whole film. I love the corn dogs bit.
I love when the bear escapes. He's like, no refunds. Consider escaping with your lives a refund.
Do we?
Yeah.
Hey, and let's not forget, he's following in his dad's footsteps as a platinum recording artist with "Love Me Sexy."
Remember, he played basketball in high school too, so he was showing some skills off.
This movie might be autobiographical.
His basketball scenes are so funny because it's like, again, it's clear he does have athleticism, but when he's in the low post and he just keeps kicking it out and asking for it again, it's so fucking funny.
Put it back in the blender.
Yeah, put it back in the blender. Nope, not good. No, take it back. It's so good.
Aubrey, you need to teach the Jackie Moon style of basketball. I you know what? Defenses won't be prepared, and I think the element of surprise is going to take Santa Fe Catholic to the next step.
Look, there's a real argument for the underhanded free throw.
Absolutely.
Eat their pride and go for the underhanded free throw.
That argument's been there. People just refuse to ever do it.
No.
This is not a joke. We've considered it. This was a first time watch for me. I have avoided this movie
It's your loss.
since its release.
It's your loss.
It was not my loss because like Blades of Glory was a movie that I'll never watch that movie. That's in the same category as the other movies I mentioned before. I don't get this one. I really don't. I was about like 35 minutes in and I'm just like, this is the second movie I watched.
Ooh.
The prep for this. And I'm just like, if this is what we're doing, I'm not going to make it. I don't get it. There's a handful of bits that are funny. The bear thing was funny. The corn dogs thing was funny.
Poker game is hilarious with Tim Meadows.
Yeah, well, everything with Tim Meadows is hilarious.
All right, Step Brothers. Everybody knows this movie. If it's not Anchorman, it's Step Brothers, the one that people most associate Will Ferrell with.
Does this one get a passing grade at least?
First time watch.
Is this one universal?
Writer and producer on this.
First time watch. I don't like this movie very much either.
Oh, all right. So this is the one we fight over because this movie is my favorite Will Ferrell movie. It's on my Mount Rushmore of comedies of all time. I immediately got the joke the first time watching this in theaters, where these are two like mid-40s men playing like a 12 and 11-year-old boy. I was dying laughing before the opening credits even finished. Like there's like 6 jokes before they even tell you that the name of the movie is Step Brothers. That had me fucking on the floor. When he's at the wedding and he's just like, I didn't want salmon. I said it 6 times. Immediately I was like, I know who this little shithead kid is. I know who this is.
I smoked pot with Johnny Hopkins.
Yeah, he's like actually he's a doctor. He got a degree.
Wedding is horse shit.
Hopkins. So fucking good.
It's the best. I don't disagree that this might be the best Will Ferrell movie. And the thing that's different about this one, every movie that we've talked about, I believe since Old School, at least that he's been a major piece of, none of them have been R.
Oh.
This was his big kind of, I'm going to make a big R-rated movie. That's why it feels so much different than all of these other movies that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And they really just completely sell out. And it is absolutely hysterical. And again, this is another movie where it's like everybody has to buy into being as juvenile as humanly possible. Like Richard Jenkins is an incredible dramatic actor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this movie, they make him act like a dinosaur. And he does it. And it rocks. I've seen it 6,000 times.
I agree.
I'll drop that motherfucker.
So much room for activities. The line that my wife and I will quote all the time is if somebody hurts their wrist or something, and we say, how's your wrist? It's a waiting game at this point. We just don't know. Catalina wine mixer.
Are bonita fish big? Yeah, they are. What's this guy's deal?
Yeah, they're a trophy fish. So yeah, they're kind of big. So fucking good.
The only 80s Billy Joel cover band.
Shut your whore wife up.
Every scene still cracks me up. Whenever I need to create like a PowerPoint, if ever I want to get a joke from someone before it's finished, you always put the fucking like steps and then put a question mark step and then at the end profit and then investors.
Maybe you.
Possibly you. Fucking yeah, it's so fucking good.
I can definitely off the top of my head just do the entirety of Boats and Hoes, undoubtedly.
The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. Do you on the bottom while you drink sangria?
Nachos, lemonades, and my dad's boat. You won't go down because my dick can float.
Spin around the world, go port to port.
Yes.
The end when they actually perform and they're like breathtakingly talented, I think is such a funny bit. Yeah, to like come out of nowhere. I want to make bank, bro. I want to drive a Range Rover.
The Goods, Live Hard, Sell Hard. A movie we talked about a few times over our run. He plays McDermott. He plays basically his partner who he didn't give the parachute and he dies when he jumps from the plane. Just another one of those cameos where he shows up for like one small role in a movie. It's uncredited technically. Stupid movie, but Rigby, one of Rigby's favorites. The Good, Sell Hard, Live Hard.
One of those that he produced and he's like, this will make a little bit more money if I'm in it for 4 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another apparition role that he plays in there. Man vs. Wild 2009. I saw somebody added this in there.
He was the first ever guest on the show, and it just shows like how naturally funny he is just improvising with normal people. And he's on this survival show with Bear Grylls. So they get dropped off in the Arctic Circle, and the first thing he does the moment he lands is eat all the food that they have. And Bear's like, all right, so this is what we got to do. And he just fucking scarfs it all down. But then he like starts like messing with him the whole time, which is so funny. He's like, hey Bear, just give me the high sign when it's time for us to drink our own piss. All right. He's like, just look over and give me a little wave. But my favorite part was when they're like trekking through the snow and Bear's explaining, because on that show he would explain how you survive in these moments. He's like, it's important to build snowshoes because you're going to save your energy. They build them and he goes, hey Bear, you can't really tell when you're watching, but the things you make for survival are actually really shitty quality. He's like, these shoes fucking suck. It's so good.
He's a funny guy. We should have a whole aside on his college game day prediction appearances. I mean, it's just anytime he's on something where he just has to ad lib, he's awesome.
2009 to 2012, he appeared on Eastbound and Down in 5 episodes alongside Craig Robinson in some of the funniest outtakes you will ever see in your life when he's talking about his plums and let the boy walk.
I can feel it in my plums.
That's one of the few times I've seen him break himself when he's trying to give that piece. But when he talks about, I want him to watch like my father did and like his father did.
And his father before him.
When I'm making love to my wife, Beverly. So he's got this silken, like Ric Flair hair. It's so good.
Oh. Ashley Schaefer, BMW.
Yeah.
Still one of the best juxtapositions of any TV show I've ever seen when you're playing Kenny Rogers, level turn us around while Kenny Powers is chucking baseballs at BMWs. Fantastic.
Let the boy walk.
There's a connection here with Danny McBride. I think Will Ferrell produced Foot Fist Way, which was Danny McBride's first movie. I think that's how this connection came about.
Wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
By this time, he's huge, right? 2010, he played Megamind, which he went to the animated side for that. Something you really hadn't seen him do before that.
Good way to get a paycheck if you're a famous person.
Yeah.
Omega Mind's awesome.
I mean, he's got 2 kids. I think he just had his 3rd child right around this time. So I think life dictated that probably in some ways, and be like, I can't travel as much. I got the kids, I'm doing the family thing, so animated maybe a little bit easier to get a good paycheck and not have to be on set every day.
The movie is good and funny, and you guys should watch it.
I love that.
Megamind good, Step Brothers bad. Checkerino.
I didn't say Step Brothers was bad. I said I didn't like it.
Very different. This is true. This is different.
Outside of Barbie, this is his biggest box office.
That makes sense. Animated film.
Yep.
It's gonna hit. That's DreamWorks, isn't it?
Yeah,
Who did Megamind?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
DreamWorks.
I take that back. Lego is bigger.
Yeah, well, that also makes sense.
This one's kind of like underrated funny. Like it'll catch you off guard. If you go into it being like, oh, I'm about to watch this great animated movie, it might not work as well for you, but it's kind of like subversively funny and unexpectedly good.
I feel like Will Ferrell's voice is so iconic, right? Like everybody picks him out. Him as a voice actor for Megamind, is it distracting?
No, I don't think so, because I think him doing voice acting work is a strength of his. I prefer him in that because the bigness of just how he goes about his comedy,
His personality.
plays really well in animated stuff. Like it plays really well in voice
The
acting.
thing about an animated movie is you can't improvise quite as much because most of the time it's already animated and it's really expensive if you go off script.
Yeah.
Which would explain why he doesn't do a ton of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think his voice lends to it.
He's great in the Lego movie. Like I really enjoy his voice work in that. So that makes sense. That's a good point. Kind of distance itself from the identity and more of just like you can, because there's so many mainstream actors who do voice work that is so uninspiring and just boring.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you don't get that with Will Ferrell. He's got some tenor with how he approaches the role. So I guess that makes sense.
For animated stuff, you have to be over the top. It's very rare that you need to be straight in an animated
Exactly.
movie. You have to be over the top.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it works for him better than it does for other mainstream actors, because that's the level he operates on all the time.
That's a good point.
So it's just a natural thing for him to, it's like a subversive bit, which it's right in his wheelhouse.
Well, another comedy, The Other Guys, Detective Gamble, a movie, again, we haven't covered in 99 episodes. Him and Wahlberg going back and forth here. That scene where he talks about how the tuna they've tasted lion.
Incredible.
Oh,
So funny.
we've tasted lion. We're going to create a series of breathing apparatus.
Like, can we be on land all day? No, but hour 45? No problem.
9 out of 10 times you lose that.
This movie rules.
Yeah, I agree.
It's also, sadly, the last time Adam McKay just made a comedy. He credits of this movie where he does like the Wall Street statistics. Isn't that the credits of this movie?
Yeah, it gets like sneaky political when it wasn't really political the whole movie.
And that's when you're like, oh, this is the guy that's going to make Vice.
Yeah.
Like, that was it.
Yep.
That was the shift. It's really weird watching that movie now and being like, oh, his next movie was he was The Big Short, right? Wasn't that him?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
The Big Short.
This movie also, it has nothing to do with Will Ferrell, but the flip of killing off Samuel L. Jackson in The Rock
Oh
was
my
just
God.
totally unexpected.
All time.
All-timer.
Whenever Purdue loses, in my Purdue group chat, one of my buddies sends the gift and it says, "You think of what I'm thinking? Aim for the bushes."
And then what is it? Foo Fighters that plays?
There
Yep.
goes my hero.
And also, the bit with him and Ava Mendes as his wife in the movie is just so good.
That's my favorite bit in the movie, next to Michael Keaton quoting TLC,
Yeah.
is how all the hot chicks are attracted to him and how he keeps referring to his wife as like this ugly Hagrid ball and chain, and it's Ava Mendes. It's so, and Mark Wahlberg's like, "No, seriously, who is that?" He's like, "I know she's not much to look at, but you know, she's there for." He's like, "No, seriously, who is that?"
Don't go chasing waterfalls. I'm saying.
The one I quote a lot is, "Who wants Arnie Palmy alert? Arnie Palmy alert. Who wants Arnie Palmies?"
It's Christina.
That's a goodie.
I don't know if this will be confusing or frustrating, but I absolutely love this movie.
Yes.
Dude, Other Guys is good, man.
This is my favorite Will Ferrell movie. If like when it comes up, this is the one. I love this movie.
It's so good, man.
Full stop. I think it's great. A lot of the stuff that was being funny was kind of being played off of him. He wasn't
Yeah.
really big. So a lot of the stuff that was happening around him was really big.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that worked for me really well.
And they did a nice job of writing his characters. So you there was always a hint that there's something more to this soft-spoken nerd. And then when we start finding out about Gator, then it comes in, it really comes out. But I love when Will Ferrell's not playing like the buffoonish role. I love roles like this.
Yep, I agree.
He realized he like looking back, he was just like a friendly pimp in college. He didn't understand. Gator needs some walking around money.
Gator don't play that game.
Goes back to the the serious side in 2010 as well, and Everything Must Go alongside Rebecca Hall, a role where he's post-divorce and is selling all of his shit in his front yard. A little yard sale action.
This is my kind of movie. I was really looking forward to this. I set this one aside because I'm like, I know what I don't like and I know why I don't like it, but I haven't seen some of these other ones. So Stranger Than Fiction and this were ones I really made them note. This was the movie I was watching that made me late.
Okay.
I fit it in right at the last minute.
It's a good one.
I wanted to like this movie a lot more than I did. It's you know, a known person that's known for something, doing something different, my kind of speed. It's a quiet, kind of ruminating thing on a very specific type of human experience, my type of thing. Rebecca Hall, I'm here for pretty much anything that she's going to do.
I love Rebecca Hall.
She's great.
This movie works really well for about 45 to 50 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer. It kind of fumbles the bag in the last third. It's adapted from a short story, which I hate to be the guy that does this, but you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
Because it falls apart in its final third. And like characters are making choices that don't make any sense. The part that bothered me the most is I just don't feel like it found a satisfying conclusion. He does a really good job. He gives a really good performance here. And you can almost see him physically holding it back. Because there's a scene in the end where he has to be more personable and talk to people and be funny. And you can almost see him like hold it back to just be really understated. And I appreciated that. Like he really went for it.
I think this movie's interesting. I wish he would do this more.
Agreed.
That's my conclusion to it. I don't find this wholly successful, but I would love to see him take more shots like this.
I agree. This is a movie I gave up on about an hour in, so it makes sense the way you said it, Aubrey. Where I was like, eh.
It's a rave.
What sucks is producers and directors have a hard time casting him in roles like this now because he's such a behemoth as a comedic actor that it's tough to get people to buy into him. Like you just said, Aubrey, like you can tell he's holding back.
You got to take him out of typecast, and that takes a while.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got to go so far the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has to work hard.
He can't pull in any of what he's actually good at.
Yeah.
It's almost a handicap for him because as soon as he gets into that bag, everyone's mind switches to, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So he almost has to play a character like this. But I think what ended up happening is you can see this dramatic element of his ability develop because there's more here than there was in Stranger Than Fiction. It's still not there enough to carry this movie in the way that a movie like this needs to be carried. He's got to get to a space that he doesn't fully get to. I think it's just because he doesn't do it enough.
Yeah.
It's all there for him.
I think we are certainly in the era of Will Ferrell is no longer going to be a super duper mega movie star.
Yeah.
I think this is the turning point.
Yeah.
And I had not realized that it had been quite this long since Will Ferrell was making stuff consistently that I liked.
Almost 15 years.
So,
Yeah, he takes another swing. We won't talk about it. Downhill with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah, I saw it at Sundance. It's mediocre at best.
I like that movie, but it's tough to watch him not in the role that we're used to seeing him in.
Mm-hmm.
You guys look back at the decade. I mean, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Every year he's had a substantial, critically or financially successful movie. Every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable.
We saw what Jim Carrey did for a run there. We saw what some others did, but a full decade like that. And now we're in 2010 or in 2011, and he played D'Angelo Vickers in only 4 episodes of The Office. It felt like he was there a lot longer.
Yeah.
Because there's that gif of him like doing the juggling thing. But I feel like Office fans are not a big fan of D'Angelo Vickers because they kind of mark it as like a Steve Carell stepping away situation.
and that was not the best thing that ever happened to The Office.
No, in his opening scene, he's almost positioned as a similar character as Michael Scott. So then when he comes back, because he comes back like after a break or in the next season and starts the next season, and then he's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a world-class guest appearance by him. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
I think The Office falls off of an actual cliff when Steve Carell leaves. His pockets are really good, and I think this is one of those. Like that first introduction with Steve Carell is
That scene is awesome. Yeah,
it's insane. And then, but everything that comes after it with D'Angelo, I find to be interesting and funny as well. Like One of the things The Office gets right are these guest appearances. And this is, to me, this is elite. I love this.
Yeah.
He's probably my favorite of the replacement Carells. I like him more than Spader, Kathy Bates.
Robert California is not a very exciting character.
Idris Elba, I don't think works particularly well.
No.
Ooh, disagree.
I'll put Idris at 2.
Love Idris Elba's appearance. Love Idris Elba's appearance.
I love the Robert California guy. I think it's hilarious.
30 Rock, he played Shane, and so he's like getting into his like major TV show cameo era here. He's in 3 episodes between 2010 and 2012.
Are you aware of his role on that show?
No.
He is the host of it's sort of a bounty hunter show, but the show is called Bitch Hunter. That he's only in like seconds at a time of any episode. But the one line that I remember is he busts in the door with a shotgun and he says, "Put the mimosas down, bitch." And then that is it. It cuts away from that. That's like, it's the preview for his reality show.
Oh, that's funny.
It's one of the great 30 Rock bits. It's so funny.
This is why I think the movie star thing or the superstar thing still carries on, because he just kind of casually appears in 2 of the biggest, most successful and popular shows of this generation. Just kind of pops in, and like the D'Angelo thing was massive.
Yeah.
So like this to me is still carrying, because he's still moving the needle just in a different way.
I don't disagree. 2013, he makes a cameo appearance towards the end of The Internship alongside Owen Wilson. God, he works with Owen Wilson a lot as a mattress salesman. It's a funny bit. He's again another one of those films where he just shows up for a scene or two, but leaves a lasting impact. But then you see him start to enter what I would call his sequel era. Like in the 2010s, I mean, Anchorman 2, alongside, Steve Carell, James Marsden, Jim Carrey. So he's kind of reprising that role and everything that Ron Burgundy was. Back to the animated side with the Lego movie as Lord Business with Chris Pratt and Alison Brie.
What a name.
I think this movie is extraordinary. This was the first movie I watched again. Got to watch it with my son, so thank you for that. Him as that character, animated, is amazing. Because he makes all of the stupid stuff this movie is doing really funny. And then the cut to him in real life is just insane. It's for my money probably his best movie. I rate this movie very high.
Hard to disagree with you. The Lego movie is pretty incredible. Yeah, he's great in that kind of dual role as the real life dad and then kind of the overlord of Legoland. It's fun.
Rare occasion that the spinoffs and the sequels are good also. Lego Ninjago movie contains arguably my favorite trailer of all time. I absolutely love that trailer.
2015, he's in Get Hard alongside Kevin Hart and Alison Brie. Plays James, the guy who's headed to jail for some white collar crime, and convinces Kevin Hart convinces him that he's a worthwhile trainer for such a thing.
This movie's awful.
This is the end. This is it. This is where it's all done.
It died.
This is wrap it up, go home. The thing about Will Ferrell is he had his main superpower was this ability to harness this man-child energy and somehow make his characters likable and make you want to root for him while also being so over the top in everything that he does. The reality is he just got older and it doesn't play anymore.
Yeah.
And so he tried to find, he tried to adopt kind of this different speed where it's sort of, he's so square is kind of where he'll start at the beginning of the movie. And then he'll turn into that Will Ferrell persona that we're so familiar with. And that's kind of what he does here. This movie is terrible. And this is the first of many terrible movies to come, I think.
I also think he's dabbling in something, not just him, but him and Kevin Hart are dabbling in something that does not play well. Him being the black person in this movie is part of the reason why it doesn't work. It's hard to kind of do this criticism of Kevin Hart because it's very nuanced, but like what they're playing with is a really touchy thing to play with. And if you're gonna try, you need someone that traverses those waters in their comedy a lot more than Kevin Hart does. And I don't mean that as a negative to Kevin Hart. Do your comedy. This isn't usually the comedy that he does. It doesn't work at all.
He talks about families most of the time. That's how he talks about his kids.
Yeah.
That's your shtick.
I wouldn't call Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart our most nuanced
No.
No,
performers working today.
Comedic duo.
especially with kind of like a one joke movie where it's like this white guy is so white that this black guy is trying to pretend to be like a gangster who can get him ready for prison. And like that is a nuanced joke.
There's something there. Actually, they just made that movie this year. The American Fiction was basically that movie.
Yep.
That's a super thoughtful movie with an extraordinarily nuanced actor. Yeah.
Exactly.
And hilarious.
That's my guess is it's funny, but also a drama. Yeah, there's also like depth to it. This is more like, hey, you want to see two of the more over the top comedians you've seen try to pull this off? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, and they don't even address it, but the awkward part is it's always there.
Yeah.
Last Man on Earth, one episode of that. Great show. One of my favorite shows from the past decade.
That's a good show.
God, it's so good. A couple movies I think are pretty bad, including a sequel, Daddy's Home and Daddy's Home 2 with John Lithgow. Back at it with Mark Wahlberg there. I think there's more juicy stuff to get into, so I don't want to spend too much time on those films, but
Yeah.
they're trying to recapture that energy with Wall Daddy from 2010.
You don't want to talk about Mel Gibson during Easter weekend?
No, I don't think that's a good look for our listening audience, our trusted audience out there. But and then good old Holmes and Watson.
One of the most depressing movies ever made.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of Jay's favorites.
Oh my God. That broke my heart watching that movie. It truly did. You know what it was really? It was just like, oh, we all get older, don't we? Yeah, we are knocking on death doors. We're closer every single day. If Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly can't recapture that glory that they had so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not even that long ago, but my God, this is disastrous. And also maybe it's the Adam McKay of it all. He's not doing these movies anymore. Maybe they're given like too much free reign and they don't know where the guardrails are. It just doesn't work at all.
This movie broke Morton hearts, Jay. This was the end of Gary Sanchez partnerships with Adam McKay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Adam McKay has like since said in interviews like he really regrets how he handled it. I don't even know that they even really talk anymore. And the final nail in that coffin of those two was Adam McKay gave John C. Reilly the part of Jerry Buss in Winning Time, and
Yeah.
The Lakers show.
Damn,
that was the end of it for those two.
the movie was terrible in the box office and not great behind the scenes for relationships.
Yeah.
The guardrails point you make is such a good one, and I wish more people would talk about it in terms of like brilliant artists just in general.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need someone to be like, that's not funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is what happened here. I haven't seen it, so I'll never know.
It's pretty bad.
Based on what you guys are saying, I mean, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay are going in different directions.
Yeah.
It just seemed like that it was just time for them to not be doing the same projects anymore. Will Ferrell said that Adam McKay just wanted to keep doing more and more and more movies. And Will Ferrell was really uncomfortable with seeing movies produced by Gary Sanchez that he didn't even know about. That was part of the friction.
All right, well, let's talk about largest critic gap. It's probably going to be a short one because his role's not terribly huge in this movie. But Aubrey's going to talk about Between Two Ferns in the movie, where he plays himself, which we don't see very often in featured reviews or version.
This will be a very short one because this being a movie is weird to me. If you've seen Between Two Ferns, it's just trying to make a movie version of this shorter sketch series thing that Zach Galifianakis does. I think the Between Two Ferns parts of this are funny and they work. I had never watched the Between Two Ferns stuff before I watched this movie. And I kind of just got thrusted into the world of this movie. And so I thought that when he was talking to a celebrity in those interview styles, it was great. I see what they were trying to capture. Everything else is odd to me. But it reminded me of watching the Impractical Jokers movie.
Yep.
When they were doing Impractical Joker stuff, I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Everything else, I was like,
We don't need a thread.
away from me. Yeah, like
We don't need a through line.
do the bit. That's what we're here for. Try to make it a movie.
And Will Ferrell just plays basically like he's the exec who's pulling the strings and basically making his life miserable the whole time.
Which is like an exaggerated version of whatever an exec would be, pulling the strings and kind of lying, but not really, to Zach Galifianakis to get what he wants, to get clicks for his website. He's not really in it a ton.
Because did Between Two Ferns start on Funny or Die?
Yeah.
So I guess he has been there kind of since the beginning.
Well, that's the bit in the movie, is that it started there and it blew up, and so they need more episodes. And so Zach Galifianakis is trying to get a real job as a talk show host. So Will Ferrell says he'll get him a real job as a talk show host if he gets him more episodes, so they have to go on the road.
That's right. That's right.
If you really like Between Two Ferns, there's parts of this you'll like. The rest of it, you can just kind of skip through. I think the Chance the Rapper one was my favorite. He's just like it.
You didn't love the bit with John Legend and sleeping with his wife?
I did. I thought that was really funny. Idea that Chrissy Teigen would really be into Zach Galifianakis, and then with John Legend kind of playing around with it was hilarious.
Caught me off guard, but it cracked me up.
It's pretty good.
Just thought the interview of Chance the Rapper was really funny. It's just like, if you were named something else, would you have pursued a different career? What does your brother do? He's a rapper too. Well, what's his name? It's just that one killed me.
All right, so the last couple of years here, Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga, he plays Lars, also a screenwriter and producer on that. I don't think everybody's favorite movie, but I will still stand that song should have won the Oscar, and you can fight me on that.
The song does rock.
You can fight me to the day you die on that.
I love the bit where everyone makes a joke that they're brother and sister, and they like downplay it, but it's like real quiet. Like, we're probably not related. We're probably not. I think that's because his dad is Pierce Brosnan, and he just like banged every girl in that small town.
Mm-hmm.
That movie for a lot of people was sort of his comeback, and for me, I was still just like, this is like watching Carmelo Anthony on the Lakers. This is brutal. Just like,
That's a hater.
That's good.
Spirited in 2022. I saw this at a Regal Mystery Monday movie, so I did not know what I was walking into. Actually found it quite pleasant. It's on Apple TV Plus. I recommend people check it out.
I actually like that too.
It's a good Christmas movie.
Yeah, I like it.
And he plays Present, and I like it. I think he's good in it. Understated.
Little Christmas Carol riff.
Mm-hmm.
I like the bit where the most insulting thing you could say to somebody in Dickens' world was "good day." And it's like, oh my God, like everyone like clutches their pearls in disgust when you say "good day."
Yep.
This is his highest budgeted film with a $200 million budget.
Over 200 million.
That's Apple for you.
Holy
Dude, I'm telling you, these streaming services don't understand budgets at all, and they just pay whatever they can to hold on to the rights of movies forever. It's like, oh yeah, do you want $1 billion Christmas movie? Sure, whatever.
Well, and to be fair, also, a lot of that money is money that they would otherwise be paying on the back end of movies that were going into theaters. They just pay it all on the front end.
That's true.
Instead of paying for all the marketing on that side. So before we get to our last review, the more recent roles that he's come out with, Strays, Jay's favorite talking dog movie that we've talked about a few times.
My favorite brunch restaurant is featured in the film Strays.
Ooh,
So there you go. The dogs are walking past the restaurant.
nice.
So yeah, I've seen Strays.
Special place in your heart, huh?
Shout out to Denny's.
Yeah, shout out Denny's, my favorite brunch spot.
But let's go to we saved the best for last, and that's highest critic score, which is Barbie. He plays Mattel's CEO, and Jay is our guest Munson has it.
Yeah, what to say about Barbie? I mean, I'm sure this is top of mind for many of the people listening right now. Surely top of mind for the people on this show right now. Barbie, a film I like a good bit. I like Barbie a lot. It's Greta Gerwig's worst film, but it's still good.
It's no Francis Ha, you know?
I mean, there's part of me that is like, I wish Greta Gerwig had done something else, but I totally understand why she did this film, and it's cool that it made $1 billion. Will Ferrell is far and away the worst part of this movie.
Wow.
I think he is so bad in this movie. And it just kind of continues this trend for me where I'm like, he just doesn't have it anymore. I have this problem with a lot of performers, especially people that come from Saturday Night Live. It's just, they never ground themselves in the reality of the movie that they're in. They just always feel like they're in an SNL skit. And this is where I'm like, is this just what Aubrey thinks about every one of his movies? And I am only seeing it in like his more recent stuff? Maybe. Is he actually the most right of all of us? It could be.
Oh, yeah.
But that is how I felt watching this movie, where I'm just like, he's supposed to be kind of this, one of the most satirical characters in the movie. I mean, he's basically being Lord Business for a Lego movie, really, is what he's being.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
But never like puts himself in any situation or any state of mind that feels remotely human in any way. In a film that is supposed to be about juxtaposing the quote unquote humans that we see on the real world here represented in the boardroom, and then the people in Barbie world who are supposed to be these completely uninhibited by human problems and stuff like that. And Ferrell is just relentlessly unfunny in this.
Cartoonish.
Exactly. Totally cartoonish the entire time. Doesn't contribute to the theme, to the story thematically or anything like that. It's just a huge dud for me in a movie that I otherwise like. Pretty much everything involving Mattel itself, which is by its very nature the most cynical part of the movie anyway, is lame to me. It's just lame. I don't like it. I like the movie though. Fun movie. Bad part of a fun movie.
This is my exact take, and I thought about this earlier when I knew we were going to talk about it. I was just like, my exact take is I love this movie like a lot, and he's my least favorite part of it. And for all the reasons you say, I think one of the things that makes it so disappointing is that you say he's not grounded in anything. He doesn't feel real. There's nothing that he's attached himself to any level of humanity. And the movie works so hard to establish that up until he gets there. Mm-hmm. This movie has so much work to do to get to where it needs to go, and his character never gets there, and it's ultimately really disappointing.
And I would be a lot more forgiving if he was funny, which he is not.
I agree.
Which is unfortunate.
It's also a different speed. Will Ferrell bit doesn't necessarily work here because they're doing a whole different thing than what he normally does.
Yeah. Feels like a distraction.
It does.
Yeah.
The reveal is funny. I initially am like, oh, okay. The longer he's on screen, the worse I think it is. Towards the end, he's pulling away from like really good things. He's pulling away from I'm Just Ken at one point, and it's just, or the fight sequence that's happening on there, and it's just like this is a mistake in an otherwise great movie.
It's interesting. We've talked so many episodes about how like, oh, I hate this movie, but they're the best part of it. Like even the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
This is one of the few times we said like this movie's great and this person is the worst part of it. Pretty interesting.
Super interesting.
And then when it comes to him, it is very on the nose, and it is maybe too forward. I do think he's got some funny lines, but they are, a little jarring. Like I like the line where he's like, I'm the son of a mother, the nephew of an aunt. Like, because men do say that when they get called out for their bullshit for being sexist in Hollywood, where it's like, I have daughters, I can't possibly be sexist. Like, that's not really how this works.
All right. Well, we've kind of reached the mountaintop. Normally we would go straight to top performances, but 80 producing credits. The other ones that we didn't mention that he's not in, I'm going to run through them. Succession, Dead to Me. So some pretty popular, obviously very popular TV shows. Huge. May, December, Theater Camp, The Menu, Barb and Star, Hustlers, Booksmart, Vice, Sleeping with Other People, and Hot Rod. Most of those films were just in the past 8 years. And there's a ton more. But nobody we've covered has been this prolific on the producing side. We've had people start their own companies.
May, December is a weird one.
Yeah, very weird.
That's so weird that he produced May, December.
All right, Case, what do we got for top performances? This might be hard.
Being that we have a more mainstream performer, I was able to go with a little more mainstream list than we normally get. So tonight's list comes from Entertainment Weekly.
Oh.
The title of this list is the best 15 Will Ferrell movies from July 6th, 2023, and it is in order. Only 2 movies we did not discuss. Otherwise, everything else we discussed or we discussed at length.
Anchorman.
Anchorman is number 2.
Step Brothers.
Step Brothers is number 4.
Zoolander.
Zoolander is number 9.
Lego Movie.
Lego Movie is number 7.
Elf.
Elf is number 3.
Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights is number 6.
The Suburbans.
The Suburbans, unfortunately, did not make the list. It's probably 16.
Wow.
Stranger Than Fiction.
Stranger Than Fiction is numero uno, number 1.
Yeah, baby.
Wow.
Old School.
Old School is number 8.
Everything Must Go.
Everything Must Go is number 13.
Oh, there we go.
The other guys?
Oh, yeah.
The Other Guys comes in at number 5.
I'm going to guess none of those SNL ones are on there, so maybe we just steer clear of those puppies.
There is one.
Oh, Ladies Man, come on. Give it to me.
Ladies' Man is not on the list.
Damn it.
Night at the Roxbury.
Night at the Roxbury is number 15.
Oh, okay.
Stretch.
Stretch, he says.
Campaign.
The Campaign is number 12. One of the two we didn't talk about.
Can't's real C word.
I watched that movie.
Welcome to the fucking show. Love that scene.
So we're missing number 10, 11, and 14.
Semi-pro on there?
Semi-pro is not on here, unfortunately.
If Get Hard's on there, I'm going to lose my mind.
Don't even say it. It's not on there.
Barbie?
Eurovision.
Eurovision's not on there. Close, though.
Wedding Crashers, does that count?
Wedding Crashers is not on here.
Is one of the Austin Powers films on there?
Yes.
By Who Shagged Me.
The Austin Powers International Man of Mystery is number 14.
And the National Mystery.
Numero uno.
So, and one of them is a sequel, and the other one is a offbeat sports movie.
Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory is number 10.
Anchorman 2.
Anchorman 2: Legend Continues is number 11. That is the top 15.
Anchorman 2 has stuff in it.
It does. But the fact it's on there and Dick's not, it hurts my soul.
I just think the bigger role.
Yeah, that's probably it.
The article, they talked a lot about how impressive it was that a comedic sequel came out 9 years later.
Okay. That's fair.
That's the list. I thought we did pretty good. I think we only had like 3 that weren't on there.
The dude's got a lot, so it's hard to find time to talk about it all.
You had to cut Casa de Mi Padre.
Yes, I love that movie. I think it's a
Movie I have seen. Yeah.
terrific concept.
We didn't talk about Bewitched. We didn't talk about Curious George. We didn't talk about...
He learned Spanish to do Casa de Mi Padre.
We didn't talk about the shit show that is Land of the Lost with Dr. Rick Marshall. Like, there was a lot of stuff we didn't talk about.
Yeah, it's a Danny McBride one, isn't it?
Well, let's get into the Munson Meter. What we do, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors that could include longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, their acting range, awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, comedic chops, box office success, or anything else that matters to us as Munsons. We're going to start this time with James.
So when we covered Jim Carrey, I went back and listened to it, and I said, you can't tell the story of American pop culture in the 90s, let alone movies, without acknowledging Jim Carrey. And I feel the exact same way about Will Ferrell in the early 2000s. It was like a full decade where every major piece of pop culture in comedy has his fingerprints on it at a minimum or features him directly. He changed the face of comedy from like the 90s over-the-top physical humor, kind of gross-out humor, to a little bit more meta, more subversive and random than we'd seen at that point. His style was kind of unique, where his humor was 100% character driven, and his genius kind of lied in his ability to improvise and riff from the minds of these crazy man-child, and the fact that he's a 6'3" also played, but these man-child giant characters that actually become the jokes themselves. Like, you don't laugh with him in these roles. He is specifically going out of the way to make sure you laugh at him, and that is the point. Sometimes it doesn't work, for sure. And sometimes it didn't work for me upon first viewing, but when I would accept the fact that he is intentionally being over the top and stupid. He's the only actor we've ever covered who actually was a recipient of the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. The awards aren't really there, but that is what happens when you're one section of film industry as a whole. But he's in one of my top 4 favorite Christmas movies of all time. 2 of my top, maybe 6-ish, definitely top 1 of the top 4 favorite comedies ever. He's a staple of my youth and almost all millennials and our upbringing. I'm going to give him 1 point higher than Jim Carrey with my score, and I'm going to give him an 85.
Aubrey.
This was hard to kind of parse through because any conversation about Will Ferrell, I feel like I'm always doing a dance of like, I don't like him, but I'm not trying to appear overly negative because I get it. I get what he does. He's a certified comedic legend at this point. He has numerous characters that will last significantly longer than his career will. Like, my son will know these characters. Like, they will live on. These movies will live on. His stamp on comedy and the way comedy was done, as James said, is undeniable. The goofy, kind of stupid humor is something that became a staple of that time, and it's really led by him. So while I don't personally enjoy a lot of his movies or his shtick, I get it and I respect it because it's impossible to deny his accomplishments. For my Munson's rating, it's also hard because that's not really what I'm judging. I want to know when it gets like, what kind of actor are you? And comedic actors are actors, and what he does, he shows versatility in it because he's able to bring so many different characters to the screen, and those characters are the bit, as James said. He has a lot of variation in that. His attempts to dabble into the dramatic movies weren't terrible. They were promising and interesting, but there wasn't enough of them. The awards aren't there, and when I think about Will Ferrell, I think about more like kind of just dumb things. And that commitment is acting, though. So his versatility isn't there, but I think he's a good actor. For what he does, he's great at what he does. I wish I could see a little bit more of that. And so he's a certified legend. I respect him. I think he does great work. I hope he does more dramatic stuff so I can see what he can really do. I'm at a 79.
Jay, our guest Munson.
Yeah, so this was a tough one because if you're looking at the timeline here, he's been doing bad work a lot longer than he's been doing good work, in my opinion. And that's coming from the guy who worshiped at the altar of Will Ferrell once upon a time. What I love so much about him is that he is, unlike so many huge comedy stars, your Robin Williams, your Eddie Murphys, probably even your Kevin Hart's to a certain extent, Jim Carrey. Those guys are like the show. What Will Ferrell is so good at is being part of a team, like a comedy team, where he surrounds himself with the most talented people, and he's willing to defer, which I think is awesome and one of the best things about him as a performer. He is the poster boy of one of the biggest waves of comedy, kind of that frat pack early 2000s shift that came to be. I would say he is the poster boy for that era as much as anybody else. And for that, you know, he's historically very important. He's made some of the most quotable films of all time. He was hugely important to me. And now every time I see him in a new movie, I sigh and say, what used to be. I'm doing my best. It does just make you think like, maybe it was good the Beatles like never had a chance to reunite and make another album. Like they just cut it off, you know, like Let It Be was it. And they never had a chance to make another bad album.
Respect.
Really wasn't their choice though, Jay.
Well, choice or not, you know.
Freaking Yoko Ono, I'll tell you what.
I'm glad Will Ferrell's still kicking. I'll say that. It's just been a bad run for him, but certainly if you look backwards at kind of his legacy, very important. I'm going to give him a 72, and I'm going to bump him 5 because I buried the lead. I've met Will Ferrell. Nice guy.
Wait, what?
Oh, what?
Yeah, I met Will Ferrell. It was in high school. I was working, this is the same place I met Bridget Wilson Sampras, actually. I was working at a tennis tournament in LA, the tennis tournament that no longer exists, but Will Ferrell was there to see one of his buddies play tennis, and I was working in the back, like where all the celebrities would go and park their cars and go to the tournament. Will Ferrell drives up, and obviously this is like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm at the Vatican. The Pope is standing in front of me. This is like, I'm a devout Catholic to the
High school Jay, yeah.
He's glowing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is like, he's about to emerge with this golden glow. But even better than that, he walks out in an all green Puma tracksuit with green Puma sneakers on.
I love this.
And he walks out, you know, he was going to do what he did, but I was just like, oh, man, Mr. Ferrell, like, you're so awesome. I love you, whatever I said. And then I was like, hey, could you sign this for me? The only thing I had was like a free tennis shoe that I had gotten. So I handed him an unworn Adidas tennis shoe, and he signed it. I still have it upstairs. But he was super nice. He talked to me for like 15 seconds.
That kicks ass.
Nothing but good vibes coming from Will that day. So I'm going to prop him up to a 77 on that.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Case.
Well, I have not met Will Ferrell, but him and Eddie Murphy have impacted my personal life. For a long time, our softball stadium, they would put the names of season ticket holders on the seats. I bought 2 season tickets every year that would have the names of a Eddie Murphy character and a Will Ferrell character. We constantly talk about Alan Gamble and Frank Picard and Gene Frankel. For a good 3 years, there was inside jokes within our athletic department. I think he's just such a behemoth in the landscape of comedic actors. One of the things that I really appreciate about him is that I've never heard anything scandalous about Will Ferrell. The most scandalous things we have about is a breakup with him and Adam McKay and him and Catan. That's it. I agree that I think we're on the back end. Before, the performances on the back end of his career that I don't love, I see an increase in the producing. I mean, he was one of the producers on The Menu. I mean, he is a fan of film and of telling good stories. And I think he's had the most cultural impact of anybody we've talked about in 99 episodes. And with all of those things said and just my fandom of him, I'm going to give him a 93.
Ooh,
Yeah.
let's go. Up the ladder, baby. All right, I'll finish this out. Impressive producing background. While his awards footprint and his lack of range is not necessarily great, I mean, he's shown speckles of it, but literally everyone and their mother, grandfather, niece, creepy-ass neighbor knows who he is. Like, the dude has insane amounts of pop culture relevance. No one improvises like him that we've covered. Like, then no one can make top-notch comedic actors break like he can. So I think that's a testament to his comedic stature. And then I just love that documentary he put out where he played for 10 baseball teams in one day and traveled. Like, yeah, moments like that just show like how he transcends his art form, and he does it so much for charity. Like, and that's something that I value when I rate folks. So with that, I'm going to give him the same score that Jay gave. I'm going to give him a 77. And that is going to put Will Ferrell at an 82.2, which puts him in 23rd place between Steve Buscemi and Sam Rockwell. And Mahershala Ali. They're both tied.
That's good company.
Oh, man. That's great company. I love all four of those guys.
I didn't give the lowest score. Who had that?
Jay and I gave the lowest scores.
Who would have bet that going into this episode that I wasn't going to have the lowest score?
That's right, baby. That's right.
I just think comedic acting doesn't get praised as much.
No,
they get downgraded.
That's true.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It's hard on our scale, too, for sure, with range and things like that. So, Aubrey, what has he got coming? I know he's got like 9 projects, but any like highlights?
He's got like 18 things listed on his IMDb. So the first one we'll say is Despicable Me 4, which comes out July 5th. I think that one's, I'm excited about that because again, it's more voice work. And I think the first probably 2 Despicable Me movies are interesting. That could be fun. Cordially Invited is a rated R movie. It's a comedy with Reese Witherspoon. That's completed. So that could be fun. He just has a ton of things in production. It's a lot of sports movies. There's a golf movie, something called Manning Cast. He plays John Madden. He's got a bunch of stuff in development, a Shakespeare project, something with Jason Momoa. There's just a lot. So it's one of those where you kind of just got to wait and see what gets out of production and gets made.
Yeah.
And then kind of what goes from there. But it's kind of exciting because his career at this point could kind of go anywhere.
We'll see what happens. All right, so next episode's episode 100, the big one, the biggie. We got Monty Grohl coming back. He was here with us for Sam Rockwell, Chris Hemsworth, Haley Steinfeld, and John Slattery.
Kyle, it's worth noting he has not met Will Ferrell.
I don't think so.
So I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but he used to run the Movie Marathoners podcast. Monty's great. The wheel selected one of these 5 actors. So I just want to real quick hear everyone's favorite and then who they think Monty picks. So Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, William Forsythe, Diane Ladd, and Adam Driver.
Lawrence Fishburne, guys. Let's do this and give this man the respect he deserves. Lawrence Fishburne.
I love Lawrence and Larry.
I think Lawrence Fishburne or Sam Neill. I think they'd both be fascinating. I know Diane Ladd's been on the wheel before, but I just don't know who she is. William Forsythe, unfortunately for him, his cameo in Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo is the only thing that immediately comes to mind.
Tiny penis.
No, it's not small. It's thin, okay? It's a long, thin penis, okay?
That's right.
We get to talk about The Rock.
Blue Streak, too. It's a righteous plus.
I do like Adam Driver, but he's a little new to the game at the moment.
The wheel historically looks to be leaning a little recent. I wonder if the wheel is leaning Driver's way.
Yeah.
AKA not Diane Ladd.
I would love a Larry Fish. That would be awesome.
That's who you'd pick if you were going to come back. You'd do the Fish.
Yeah.
I'm a Sam Neill guy. I love Sam Neill.
Yeah.
Just so that I could watch Deep Cover again. God, I love Deep Cover.
I like that we have a 40% chance of watching Event Horizon.
Great movie. Great.
Yes. Great movie.
I just want to talk about The Hunt for the Wilder People with Sam Neill. It's one of my favorite movies. So I'd be all about that life.
Lawrence Fishburne's cameo in Predators caught me so off guard. I audibly laughed in the theater. It made me fall in love with the movie immediately.
Adam Driver one is interesting because it's newer stuff, but it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been working a lot.
That's a lot of interesting stuff. Yeah.
And he's good,
He's
too.
really good. And his SNL shit is fucking fantastic, too.
Mm.
The oil baron one is great.
Star Wars Office. Didn't he do that?
He did the undercover boss as
Undercover boss.
Undercover Boss.
Kylo Ren, which was so
Star
fucking
Wars,
funny.
Yeah.
And Llewyn Davis.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
Outer Space.
Space. We talked about that last episode.
Uh-huh.
Who's Marty picking, knowing his background? Rockwell, Hemsworth, Steinfeld, Slattery.
Oh, Fishburne.
Yeah, this looks like a Fishburne choice.
Are any of these people like low key from the Boston area? That's important because that's how you get some of these guys sometimes with him.
Forsyth is New York, so he's out.
Pretty sure Driver's from the Midwest.
I don't know where any of these people are from. I know where one of them's from, but I have to play coy.
There you go.
I have to pretend like I don't. So, well, we don't decide. Marty doesn't decide. Jay Ledbetter doesn't decide. The wheel decides, and we'll see what happens.
About to find out Diane Ladd's from his hometown.
Jay, man, we always love having you, brother. Thanks for joining us again and talking some Will Ferrell. This is a long one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for putting up with me for so long. Generally, I have found episodes with me do occasionally tend to go a little long, but I'm going to blame it on Will Ferrell's filmography instead. So,
Yeah.
But appreciate it. Always a good time, y'all.
Any plugs, any wise words for the audience? Red carpet moment?
Go listen to my podcast, Director Watch. It's on the AwardsWatch podcast feed under that umbrella. We just did William Friedkin. Now we're doing Sofia Coppola. We're doing Tony Scott. It's going to be a good time.
Tony Scott.
Check that out. You can also read any reviews I do at awardswatch.com. Just gave Ghostbusters Frozen Empire a real pan. Really, really not into that one.
The movie's not great. Not great.
You know, anything I do there is cool. As far as words of wisdom, tip your servers generously. 20% plus.
Man, it's great having you on, buddy.
Yeah, this was great.
Thank y'all. Always a good time.
All right, as we wrap things up, you can find us on the X, Munsons at Movies. You can find us on Instagram, Munsons at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Will Ferrell?
I'm listening to what you're asking me, and if you're not listening to my answers, let's just call it a day. Just shut up! If you can't get the fat out of your ears and listen, then why am I here?
Munsons out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?
Deadliest catch without the crabs. We're almost out of gas. Called the Arabs.
Pull up the anchor, cause we're leaving dry land. Get below deck with a tick in your hand.